Chapter 44:19. In the 14th level, there were many barriers. The passages were like countless pythons intertwined, complex and ever-changing. Zhuowen and Li Shuo once again stopped in front of a dead end. The barrier was full of scratches, mercilessly blocking their path. Sigh. We've entered a dead end again. This 14th level is indeed more difficult than the previous 13 levels, Li Shuo said dejectedly. Zhuowen smiled and said, actually, we should be satisfied. To be able to reach this point, I think the two of us are probably in the lead. Moreover, this level gets more and more difficult as we go, so the time spent will definitely be much more than the previous levels. We don't have that much time. Li Shuo heard this and could not help but laugh happily. Young Master Zhuo was right. He should be satisfied. The result of the 14th level was indeed very impressive. Lead. It shouldn't be possible. After all, Virtual Corona, Mi Liang, and Cousin Li Ying are all geniuses at the top of the Void Yama Divine list. The three of them should have passed the 15th level ahead of us. Li Shuo scratched his head. He subconsciously thought that the two of them were unlikely to be a match for Virtual Corona, Mi Liang, and Li Ying. After all, along the way, he did not feel that this maze was that difficult. With Virtual Corona's ability, passing the 15th level should not be a big problem. Zhuowen glanced at Li Shuo and shook his head inwardly. He did not say anything. Li Shuo had followed Zhuowen from the first level. Basically, it was Zhuowen who led him through each level. Whether it was the winding maze or the powerful guardians, they all became simple and easy in front of Zhuowen. Therefore, Li Shuo had the illusion that the maze was not very difficult. Suddenly, Zhuowen noticed that at the edge of the dead end ahead, a blazing white light lit up. The white light was surrounded by dense and complex patterns, and below the white light was a complex array. Zhuowen could tell at a glance that this array was a teleportation array. 3 days have passed. Everyone, please enter the teleportation array closest to you and leave the maze. This monarch will tally your respective results. The Gold Lord's loud and sharp voice reverberated in the air above the labyrinth, reaching the ears of everyone in the labyrinth. How time flies. Li Shuo looked at the light emitted by the teleportation array in front of him and sighed to himself. Let's go in. Zhuowen's eyes were calm as he took the lead and stepped into the teleportation array. Li Shuo quickly followed. As Gold Lord's voice echoed throughout the maze, the teleportation portals in every corner of the maze lit up. At the exit of the 8th level, Virtual Corona looked at the gatekeeper in front of her in a rather sorry state. Her expression was so gloomy that it seemed like water could drip out of it. He looked at the teleportation array not far from the exit and then looked at the guard's cold eyes. He knew that he would not be able to get past the guard. Virtual Corona patted her clothes and shook off the dust on them. She used her divine power to tidy herself up, and she regained her calm expression. Even though the gatekeeper of the 8th level is weakened by the rules of this place, he is still so powerful. Even I can't get past him in a short time, let alone Mi Liang and Li Ying. It seems that I should be first. A confident smile appeared on Xu Mianyang's face as he strode toward the nearby teleportation array. He knew very well that he would be first in the Wen battle. If he could get to the 8th level, he would get 80 points. In one of the strongholds of the 8th level, Mi Liang's eyes were full of seriousness. He had been walking here for a long time, but he could not find the right path. Just as he turned a corner, a teleportation array lit up with a blazing white light, and Gold Lord's voice was heard. Virtual Corona might be ahead of me. I wonder if she has passed the 8th level. Mi Liang pondered for a moment. In his eyes, his only opponent was Xu Mianyang. As for Li Ying and the others, they were all trash that was not even worth mentioning. In the sky above the gladiator arena, the golden light spots in the map gradually dimmed. Then, the map that covered almost the entire gladiator arena slowly dissipated. In the open space of the gladiator arena, pillars of white light appeared one after another. Each pillar of light represented a figure. A total of 15 pillars of white light appeared in the gladiator arena. After the white light dissipated, the figures were revealed. They were Virtual Corona, Mi Liang, and the other participants of the grand tournament. After the 15 contestants appeared, They returned to their respective family headsides. Li Yinglong went up and looked at the 5 members in front of him. Then, his eyes fell on Li Ying, and he asked, Li Ying, how many levels did you pass this time? Everyone's eyes fell on Li Ying. Li Ying was the strongest representative of the House of Void. They all subconsciously thought that Li Ying had the best result among them. Even Li Shuo looked at Li Ying curiously. In his opinion, if he and Zhuowen could pass the 14th level, then Li Ying should have passed the 15th level or above, right? Li Ying puffed out his chest and pretended to be profound. I only passed the 7th level. This result has disappointed you, Master. Li Yinglong's heart was empty. He could not hide the disappointment in his eyes. The light spot that entered the 14th level was not Li Ying. Li Yinglong also remembered that there were 2 light spots in the 8th level. This meant that Li Ying's result was only 5th. The strongest representative of the House of Void was only 5th in the literary battle. Then, there was no need to mention the martial battle. At this moment, Li Yinglong understood that the House of Void was going to be last in this grand tournament. Cousin Li Ying is so strong. You actually made it to the 7th level. I only made it to the 5th level and I was completely stuck there. I couldn't find the right exit. Li Zi pulled Li Ying's arm with her slender jade-like hands and flattered him. Li Yu scratched his head and said with shame, as expected of cousin Li Ying. Cousin Li Zi is also very strong. I only made it to the 4th level. When Li Zi heard Li Yu's flattering words, she was like a cat with its tail raised. Her arrogance also became arrogant. She glanced at Zhuowen with disdain and deliberately said, Zhuanyanxue, how are your results? I think you're about the same as me. You only made it to the 5th level. You might not even be as good as me. Zhuowen's eyes were calm. He did not pay any attention to Li Zi. He had no feelings for this woman who felt so good about herself. He did not even bother to talk to her. Li Shuo was dumbfounded. What was going on? Whether it was the 5th level or the 8th level, their results were too bad. Why did Li Ying and Li Zi look so happy? And what was going on with Li Yu? Why was he flattering her? Was he going against his conscience to flatter her? Li Shuo could not be blamed for finding this strange. After all, he and Zhuowen had both made it to the 14th level. They were much better than Li Ying and the others. That was why there was such a big contrast. Chapter 44:20. It seems that your results are so bad that you don't have the face to tell me. Li Zi saw that Zhuowen was silent and thought that he was feeling inferior. She felt even more proud and disdainful of Zhuowen. Cousin Li Zi, don't go too far. Young Master Zhuo's results are very good, even better than cousin Li Ying's. Li Shuo frowned and retorted. Li Zi frowned and looked at Li Shuo unhappily. Li Shuo, how can you say that? Even if you have a good relationship with Zhuanyanxue, you don't have to tell such a lame lie. Li Ying raised his eyebrows and smiled. Li Shuo, you said that Zhuanyanshue's results are better than mine? I reached the 7th level, then tell me, what is the highest level he reached? The 8th level. Li Shuo looked at Zhuowen and said, Young Master Zhuo reached the 14th level, and I was lucky to meet him in the 1st level. Under his lead, I reached the 14th level. Li Ying and Li Zi were stunned at first, then Li Zi laughed loudly and mocked, Li Shuo, if you want to make up a lie, you should at least make up a more reliable one. Li Ying shook his head and didn't even bother to look at Li Shuo. He felt that Zhuowen was getting more and more out of hand. Li Yu scratched his head and smiled bitterly. Li Shuo, you are really too ridiculous. The labyrinth in the primordial slate is too difficult. How could you and Brother Zhuo reach the 14th level? While Li Zi, Li Yu, and Li Ying thought that Li Shuo was boasting, Li Yinglong, who was originally worried, stared at Li Shuo as if he was struck by lightning. If he remembered correctly, in the map that Jinyao Lord displayed above the arena, there were 2 light spots that were far ahead and reached the 14th level. However, those 2 light spots were not labeled, so he didn't know who they were. He always thought that the 2 light spots were only Virtual Corona and Mi Liang. Now that Li Shuo said this, he immediately realized that everyone's guess might be wrong. He was not worried that Li Shuo was bragging, because the 15 contestants who entered the maze did not know the results of the others. The only thing they knew was their own results. Li Shuo could directly say that he and Zhuoan had both reached the 14th level, which coincided with what was shown in the map. This meant that what Li Shuo said was very likely true. However, Li Yinglong did not say anything. Instead, he stood in place, waiting for Jinyao Lord to announce the results. Perhaps it was really Li Shuo and Zhuanyanxue who had entered the 14th stage? Li Shuo was very angry. He was clearly telling the truth, but Li Ying and the others did not believe him at all. This made him very sullen. All right. Lord Jinyao Lord will soon reveal the results. You don't have to fight anymore, Li Yinglong suddenly said. Li Zi, who originally wanted to mock Li Shuo and Zhuoan, immediately quieted down when Li Yinglong spoke up. He did not dare to go too far. At the same time, the Shu Long and Shu Qi families were jubilant, especially the two family heads, Shu Jieying and Mi Haomiao. They could not help but smile. Corona. You did very well. I originally thought that you were very good to be able to reach the 10th level. I didn't expect you to exceed my expectations. Shu Jieying went up and patted Virtual Corona's shoulder with a gratified smile on his face. Shu Ju, who was following behind, was quite jealous. Although Shu Jieying was his father, he had always been a serious person. This was the first time he had seen such a gratified smile on Shu Jieying's face, and this smile was for Shu Mianyang, not him. Virtual Corona was a little confused, but she was still flattered by Shu Jieying's enthusiasm. Family head, you flatter me. I still didn't perform well enough this time. Virtual Corona was a little ashamed. Shu Jieying frowned and said, you don't have to be so humble. After all, you passed the 14th level. This is already an extraordinary performance. I'm very pleased with you. Shu Ju and the others were shocked. The 14th level? What a terrifying result this was. Virtual Corona was dumbfounded. She hesitated and said, family head. What did you say? The 14th level? Shu Jieying nodded and said, yes. There were two people who passed the 14th level. Other than you, the other person should be Mi Liang. Brother, congratulations. You're still so powerful. You actually passed the 14th level in that maze. If you can pass another level, you'll be rewarded with a treasure by King Shu himself. Shu Ju pretended to be happy. Virtual Corona's pupils shrank. She clearly remembered that she had only passed the 8th level. How did Shu Jieying say that she had passed the 14th level? Was there some misunderstanding? However, Virtual Corona suppressed her doubts and asked, family head, how did you know my result? Shu Jieying smiled and said, Master Jinyao Lord set up a map of the maze above the arena. There are 15 golden light spots in it, and each light spot represents a person. 2 of them have passed the 14th level and are far ahead of the others. These 2 light spots can only be you and Mi Liang. Shu Ju and the others nodded in agreement. Among the 15 people, only Virtual Corona and Mi Liang were the most talented. These 2 light spots could only be them. Virtual Corona's face darkened, but she did not say anything. She was sure that the 2 light spots that had passed the 14th level were not her, because she had only passed the 8th level. Then the question was, who were the 2 people that had passed the 14th level? Mi Liang? Li Ying? The same thing was happening on Mi Liang and Mi Haomiao's side. When he asked about the 14th stage, Mi Liang was also dumbfounded. He felt that it was inconceivable. He had only reached the 8th stage. Mi Liang and Virtual Corona also fell into silence. They looked at each other, trying to confirm if it was the other person. However, they also saw the confusion in each other's eyes. At that moment, they knew that neither of them was the person who had passed the 14th level. At this moment, Jinyao Lord put away the Zhen Mansion slate fragment. His divine sense landed on the slate, and information was transmitted into his mind. After receiving the feedback from the stone slab, his gaze became rather strange. Master Jinyao Lord, please announce the result. Mi Haomiao said impatiently. He was already imagining that Mi Liang was one of the 2 people who had passed the 14th level. He was also imagining the additional reward that the King of Hell would give him. Although Shu Jieying did not say anything, his gaze contained a trace of excitement. Jinyaro Lord quickly regained his composure. He smiled and said, "This Wen battle has given me quite a pleasant surprise. 2 people have passed more than 10 levels, and both of them have passed the 14th level. Someone actually passed the 14th level, and 2 of them at that. It seems that it can only be Virtual Corona and Mi Liang." Li Zi's beautiful eyes were filled with shock as she muttered to herself. After personally experiencing the labyrinth of the Chariot Mansion slate, she finally knew how difficult it was to pass through. She had used all her skills and only passed through the 5th level, not to mention the even more difficult 14th level. Shell Ying frowned, feeling a strong sense of defeat in his heart. The 14th level, this was already twice the limit of what he could pass. Could it be that Mi Liang and Virtual Corona were really so much stronger than him? Chapter 44-21. Jinyaro Lord glanced at the expectant Mi Haomiao and Xu Jieying, as well as the nervous Li Yinglong. The results of this Wen battle are somewhat out of my expectations. Let me first announce the scores of the 3 teams. Jinyaro Lord put away the slate and continued, the highest score this time is 440 points, and the team with the highest score is the Xu Ming family's team. Next is the Xu Long family's team, with a total of 310 points. Last is the Xu Qi family's team, with a total of 260 points. As soon as Gold Glorious Lord said this, the entire arena fell silent. Whether it was the 3 family heads or the audience on the high platform, they all doubted their ears. The Xu Ming family, who had always been at the bottom of the rankings, had obtained the highest score in this Wen battle, far ahead of the Xu Long and Xu Qi families. Mi Haomiao maintained his smile, but it froze in an instant. Xu Jieying could no longer maintain his indifference. His pupils constricted, and he couldn't help but stare at the Virtual Corona behind him. Virtual Corona's scalp went numb. He said in a low voice, "Family head, I'm not the one who reached the 14th level. I only reached the 8th level. I wanted to say it just now, but you didn't give me the chance." Xu Jieying stared deeply at Virtual Corona, took a deep breath, and his expression returned to normal. "I miscalculated. I didn't expect someone from the Xu Ming family to obtain such a high score in the Wen battle." Saying this, Xu Jieying no longer looked at Virtual Corona, but at Li Yinglong's team. It seemed he had underestimated the Xu Ming family's strength. "Family head, brother's score is already very good. And this is only the Wen battle. When it comes to the martial battle, the Xu Ming and Xu Qi families won't be our match. The victory will still belong to our Xu Long family." Xu Ju suddenly stood up and interceded for Virtual Corona. "The Xu Long family doesn't allow failure. If you don't perform well in the martial battle, go back and wait for your punishment," Xu Jieying said expressionlessly. Xu Ju's expression changed slightly, but he didn't dare say another word. The family rules of the Xu Long family were notoriously terrifying. Even Virtual Corona had a psychological trauma from the family rules, let alone Xu Ju. The situation in the Void family's group was quite similar to this side. Mi Haomiao also secretly taught Mi Liang a lesson, and then looked at the Void family's Li Yinglong with an unfriendly gaze. Clearly, Mi Haomiao's thoughts were similar to Xu Jieying's. They both believed that Li Yinglong had hidden his strength well. Li Yinglong, on the other hand, had a very strange expression on his face. At first, he was stunned for a long time, but then his eyes burst forth with an unprecedented light. Li Yinglong couldn't help but look at Zhuowen and Li Shuo. The moment he heard the total score, he was certain that the 2 dots of light that had entered the 14th stage were members of his Xuesheng family's team. Combined with Li Shuo's words, he was certain that the 2 people could only be Zhuowen and Li Shuo. However, Li Yinglong found it inconceivable. He knew Li Shuo's abilities very well, and it would be good enough if Li Shuo could pass the 5th level. However, Li Shuo had directly entered the 14th stage in shock. Then, the only possibility was that Li Shuo had followed Zhuowen and was completely led to the 14th stage by Zhuowen. Not only Li Yinglong, but Li Ying, Li Zi, and Li Yu also couldn't help but look at Zhuowen. Their eyes were wide open, and their hearts were completely shaken. "It can't be. Is what Li Shuo said true?" Li Zi's cherry lips opened slightly as she muttered to herself. In the primordial slate, 2 contestants have reached the 14th stage. Their results are outstanding, and they are qualified to receive additional rewards from the King of Hell. These 2 are Li Shuo and Zhuanyanxue from the Void family. Congratulations to the 2 of you. In the center of the arena, Jinyao Lord spoke again after announcing the results. His gaze fell on the Void family's team, and the corners of his mouth curled up in an inexplicable smile. Li Shuo, Zhuanyanxue? Who are these 2 guys? I've never heard of them before. This result is really unexpected. I always thought that the 2 light dots in the lead were Virtual Corona and Mi Liang. I didn't expect them to be 2 nobodies. The battle of words doesn't necessarily depend on talent and strength. It might be more about luck. Otherwise, how could 2 nobodies surpass Virtual Corona and Mi Liang? Sounds of discussion rose in the surroundings of the arena. They were all pointing at Zhuo Wen and Li Shuo, who were in the Shuming family's group. Li Yinglong, on the other hand, smiled. He walked up to Zhuo Wen and Li Shuo, patted their shoulders heavily, and praised, Zhuanyanxue, Li Shuo, you've done well. This time, our Void Wall family has been in the spotlight. Next, as long as the 5 of you can hold on, our Void family will most likely not be at the bottom anymore. Zhuo Wen smiled slightly, while Li Shuo was overwhelmed by the favor and said, family head is too courteous. Speaking of which, this is mainly young Master Zhuo's credit. I completely followed him to make it to the 14th round. Li Yinglong laughed and glanced at Zhuowen. Although he didn't say anything, Zhuowen could see the gratitude in his eyes. You're just a little smart. You were lucky in the maze and found the right shortcut. In the battle of words, you can't display your strength and talent. It doesn't matter how good your results are, Li Zi said in a low voice. Li Ying's eyes flickered. The frustration in his heart gradually dissipated, and his face regained his confidence. Li Zi was right. The battle of words didn't mean anything. The battle of words was the key. Li Ying had just broken through. He was confident that he would shine in the battle of words. When that time came, Zhuowen and Li Shuo would become cowards. Congratulations, Patriarch Li. When the time comes, the King of Hell will send someone to deliver the extra reward to your Void family. Gold Lord walked up to Li Yinglong. As he spoke, he observed Zhuo Wen and Li Shuo, especially Zhuo Wen. He squinted his eyes and sized him up. Li Yinglong cupped his hands and smiled. Gold Lord is too polite. How could we trouble the King of Hell with this? When the time comes, just let me know. I will send someone to the King of Hell to get the reward. Gold Lord laughed. Patriarch Li, you don't have to worry about this. The King of Hell's people will take care of it. By the way, this Zhuanyanxue doesn't seem to be from your family. May I know who he is? Li Yinglong said politely. To be honest, young Master Zhuo is the foreign aide that our Void family has invited. Gold Lord, you might not know this, but he is also the new 10th on the Void Yama divine list. Gold Lord looked at Zhuowen deeply and asked, that mysterious Zhuo? Yes. Li Yinglong smiled. Gold Lord slowly walked up to Zhuowen and smiled. Zhuanyanxue, let me introduce myself. I am Gold Lord of the King of Hell. Chapter 44-22. Zhuowen bowed and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, Greetings, Gold Lord. Gold Lord didn't care about how Zhuowen addressed him. He asked meaningfully, if you were given enough time, would you be able to pass the 15th stage and above? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and lowered his head to think seriously. He shook his head and said, I'm afraid not. The 14th stage is too difficult. I kept going in circles and couldn't find the right path. Even if I were given more time, I might not be able to find the right path. I might fall into an endless loop. Gold Lord's eyes flashed with a trace of disappointment, but he didn't show it. You can pass the 14th stage by yourself. That's already very impressive, Gold Lord said, then turned around and said in a loud voice, Everyone, the literary battle is over. Logically speaking, there's nothing left for me to do. However, the 3 family heads just discussed with me and decided to let me be the host of the martial battle. Of course, I won't interfere with the rules of the martial battle. It's all up to the 3 family heads to decide. With that, The Gold Lord leaped into the air and landed on the northern tower. With his hands behind his back, he looked down at the arena. At the same time, the three family heads gathered in the center and began to discuss the rules of the martial battle. After a while, Li Yinglong walked back with a gloomy face. On the other hand, Mi Haomiao and Xu Jieying were beaming. Family head, what's wrong? Li Ying walked up and saw Li Yinglong's gloomy face. He couldn't help but ask. Li Zi, Li Yu, and the others also looked at Li Yinglong. They had a bad feeling in their hearts. In this grand competition, the Xu Long and Xu Qi families strongly requested to increase the Divine Void Springs share. They want to increase it to 15, Li Yinglong said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Li Ying, Li Zi, and the others turned pale with fright. 15. Aren't they going too far? Our Shuashan family only has 20 Divine Void Mountain Springs, yet they want 15 as soon as they open their mouths. This is going too far. Li Ying said angrily. Didn't we agree on this long ago? The share this time is 5. Why do they want to increase it to 15 all of a sudden? This doesn't conform to the rules of the grand competition, right? Li Zi said angrily. Zhuowen revealed a thoughtful expression. When the three great aristocratic families' grand competition was held, it was originally based on the shares of the Divine Void Mountain Springs. Almost every competition would use a fixed share of 5 Divine Void Mountain Springs as a bargaining chip. After so many competitions, this had never changed. Now, the Void Long family and Void Qi family suddenly wanted to increase their share. This surprised Zhuowen. Li Yinglong said in a low voice, in principle, this is indeed against the rules, but Mi Haomiao and Xu Jieying proposed it together, and both of them are willing to take the risk. The Xu Long family and Xu Qi family are both willing to offer 30 Divine Void Springs each. As long as we can obtain first place, we can obtain a share of 60 Divine Void Mountain Springs. If we can obtain second place, we can obtain 15 Divine Void Mountain Springs in return. Li Ying frowned and said, is Void Lacquer family crazy? Wasn't allying with the Xulong family the same as asking a tiger for its skin? Among the three great families, the Xulong family was the strongest. The probability of the Xulong family getting first place was very high. Even if the Xu Qi family were to obtain second place, they would still lose 15 Divine Void Mountain Springs. Li Yinglong said in a deep voice, if my guess is correct, the two great families should have reached some kind of agreement. After the Xulong family obtains first place, they will definitely compensate the Xu Qi family. This, don't we have the right to refuse? Li Zi said indignantly. The Xulong family and Xu Qi family had gone too far. Was it not enough for them to withdraw? No, the three great families have never withdrawn in advance. If we withdraw, not only will our Xu Qi family's reputation be ruined, we will also have to compensate the other two great families for their losses, Li Yinglong said with a bitter smile. Instantly, everyone fell silent. Their expressions became very solemn. The only thing we can do now is to fight, Li Ying suddenly said. Li Shuo, Li Yu, and the others also nodded helplessly. Right now, they could only advance and not retreat. The martial competition will begin in 4 hours. Let me first explain the rules of the martial competition to you. Li Yinglong forced himself to remain calm and began to explain the rules of the martial competition to Li Ying's group of 5. Zhuowen listened quietly. After Li Yinglong finished explaining, he more or less understood the general rules of the martial competition. The martial competition was divided into 2 parts, the team competition and the individual competition. The team competition was for teams of 5. Each team had to contribute 100 points. The winner would obtain the points of the team, and the loser would have to contribute the points of the team. As for the individual competition, the 5 members of each team could freely choose an opponent and give the corresponding points. As long as the opponent accepted the challenge, the duel would be established. If one side did not agree, the duel would not be established. However, the challenged side only had 3 chances to refuse. Once they exceeded 3 times, they would no longer have the right to refuse. First is the individual competition. Every team has to choose a corresponding captain. This time, our team's captain will be Zhuanyanxue. Li Yinglong looked at Zhuowen, a look of inquiry in his eyes. Originally, he had planned to give the captain position to Li Ying, but after Zhuowen's outstanding performance in the martial competition, he had changed his mind. He had decided to make Zhuowen the captain. As soon as he said this, Li Shuo and Li Yu were fine. However, Li Ying and Li Zi frowned. Family head, this decision is not appropriate. Li Zi suddenly objected. How is it not appropriate? Zhuo Xiaoyou's performance in the martial competition was outstanding. He helped our Shuming family obtain the highest score. What's wrong with him being the captain? Li Yinglong said. Li Zi gritted her teeth and said, I don't know what kind of luck this Xuanyuanxue has. He actually passed the 14th level in the maze, but one thing is undeniable. His strength is not as good as cousin Li Ying's. The martial competition is not a martial competition. The captain will naturally be the strongest person. I refuse to accept Xuanyuanxue as the captain. Li Ying's eyes flickered, and he said in a low voice, Li Zi, don't make trouble. After saying this, Li Ying looked at Li Yinglong and said, Family head, although Li Zi's personality is more lively, I feel that what she said is reasonable. The martial competition is naturally based on strength. I admit that his performance in the martial competition is outstanding. However, his ranking on the Shuming divine list is lower than mine. It is indeed inappropriate for him to be the captain. Of course, if family head insists on this decision, I will naturally respect your decision. Li Ying's words were natural and reasonable. Li Yinglong could not help but praise him in his heart. He felt that Li Ying was still sensible. Just as Li Yinglong was about to announce that Zhuowen would be the captain, Zhuowen spoke. Family head Li, what Li Ying and Li Zi said is very reasonable. I am not suitable to be the captain. After all, I am only an external aid. If I become the captain, others will think that the Shuming family has no one. I feel that the captain's position should be given to Li Ying, Zhuowen said indifferently. Zhuowen did not want to be in the limelight. Naturally, it was impossible for him to accept the captain's position. Therefore, he straightforwardly refused. Seeing Zhuowen's firm attitude, Li Yinglong did not force him. In the end, he gave the captain's position to Li Ying. The martial competition will begin in 4 hours. You should all adjust yourselves and prepare for the next battle, Li Ying instructed in a deep voice after dealing with the captain's matter. Chapter 44-23. When the individual competition starts later, I'll assign you your opponents. All of you must listen to my orders. While the 5 of them were sitting in the east corner of the arena, Shell Ying suddenly reminded them. Zhuowen also noticed that Shell Ying was intentionally or unintentionally looking in his direction. Cousin Shell Ying must be joking. You are the captain now, so of course we will listen to your orders, Shell Yu said with a simple and honest smile. Millimeter, I hope that someone can correct his attitude and not try to take over the position of a magpie. Shell Ying nodded and said in a neutral tone. Zhuowen sneered in his heart. This Shell Ying seemed to be magnanimous on the surface, but he was actually very calculative and narrow-minded. Zhuowen had clearly given him the position of captain, but the latter did not seem to be grateful. Instead, he seemed to be somewhat resentful. This made Zhuowen shake his head inwardly. A narrow-minded person would not be able to see the bigger picture. Instead, their future achievements would be limited. Zhuowen did not care about Shell Ying secretly targeting him. As long as it did not involve his life or interests, he did not want to be calculative with Shell Ying because it would be very boring. Time gradually passed, and 4 hours quickly passed. The audience on the arena's high platform also waited for 4 hours. They were not impatient at all. Instead, they were looking forward to it. The time has come. Now, let's begin the martial competition. According to the decision of the 3 family heads, they plan to raise the stakes together. The Void Dragon family and Void Chi family are willing to offer 30 divine Void Springs. The Void Mirage family will offer 15 divine Void Springs. If the 3 family heads have no objections, we can begin the individual competition. On the northern tower, the Gold Glorious Lord stood against the wind with his hands behind his back. He looked down at the 3 teams on the arena and said in a loud and clear voice. When he first received this news, he was taken aback. Originally, the three great families only had 5 divine void mountain springs as their bargaining chip. Now, it had suddenly increased by 3 to 6 times. It could be said that this was a massive gamble. We have no objections. Xu Jieying and Mi Haomiao looked at each other and smiled knowingly. They said in unison. Shell Yinglong's face was gloomy and he was silent. He had reached a point where he could neither advance nor retreat. He had no choice but to agree. If we lose this competition, the Mirage family will truly be unable to recover from this setback. Li Ying, you must do your best. Li Yinglong thought to himself as he looked at the 5 people who had adjusted themselves and stood up. At the same time, a huge crater appeared in the middle of the arena. Below the crater, an extremely large arena slowly rose. This arena was square in shape, and its entire body was forged from sparkling and translucent jade. If one were to lightly knock on the smooth surface of the arena, one would clearly hear the pleasant sound of metal and stone colliding. Now, the individual competition begins. The members of the 3 teams are free to choose their opponents and give them a reasonable score. As long as both sides agree, the duel can begin, Gold Lord said calmly. The 3 teams came to the edge of the arena, and the 3 patriarchs were asked to return to their respective towers. Once the battle segment began, the 3 family heads could no longer interfere. Otherwise, it would be a violation of the rules and they would be punished. Virtual Corona crossed his arms in front of his chest and whispered, "Follow the plan. Take care of the Mirage family first and squeeze as many points out of their team as possible. Then, deal a heavy blow so that they can't fight. Understand?" The 4 members behind Virtual Corona nodded, and the same order was passed down to Mi Liang. "Xu Yang, you go first. Don't expose your strength so early. Follow the plan." Virtual Corona shot a glance at a skinny man on the left. The latter grinned and leaped into the air like an arrow before landing on the arena. Xu Yang's gaze fell on the Mirage family's team. He glanced at Li Ying, Li Zi, and the others before his gaze finally landed on Zhuowen. "You're the external aide that the Mirage family invited, right? Get your ass up here." Xu Yang pointed at Zhuowen and sneered. Zhuowen raised an eyebrow. He did not expect Xu Yang to choose him as his opponent. From the aura that Xu Yang exuded, his cultivation was roughly at the late stage of the universal tribulation. This kind of cultivation was not difficult for Zhuowen at all. In other words, the only ones that could enter Zhuowen's eyes in this competition were Virtual Corona and Mi Liang. These 2 were quite strong and might be able to fight against Zhuowen. As for Xu Yang, Zhuowen could kill him with a slap. "We refuse." Just as Zhuowen stood up to meet the attack, Shell Ying suddenly said coldly, "Li Ying, what do you mean?" Zhuowen looked at Li Ying and asked calmly. Li Ying turned his head and looked at Zhuowen. He smiled faintly and said, "Xu Yang's strength is not considered strong. Fellow Daoist Zhuo doesn't need to personally take action. Let Li Yu go." With that, Li Ying stopped looking at Zhuowen and said to Li Yu beside him, "Li Yu, go and meet this Xu Yang." Li Yu scratched his head and smiled foolishly. "Okay. How many points should we give? If it's not more than 20 points, you can fight," Li Ying said in a deep voice. Li Yu nodded with a smile and jumped onto the stage. He looked at Xu Yang and said, "How many points do you want to give?" Xu Yang saw that Li Ying had rejected his opponent and a trace of disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said, "Your Xu Yang family doesn't even dare to let foreign aid come up. It seems that you don't have confidence in your foreign aid. I'll give you 20 points. Do you accept? If you don't accept, then get lost. Don't embarrass yourself here." Li Yu agreed without hesitation. The honest look on his face faded and was replaced by a serious expression. Boom. Suddenly, Li Yu and Xu Yang both erupted with the aura of the late stage of the Qian Kuan tribulation. Then, 2 huge Qian Kuan worlds floated above the stage. Terrifying tribulations raged down like a storm. On the stage, there were thunderbolts streaking across the sky, raging torrential rain, gales everywhere, surging seas of fire, and so on. All kinds of tribulations spread around the stage and drowned out the figures fighting in the stage. The onlookers could only hear the vague shadows of the battle and the crisp sound of metal clashing from the collision of the two divine artifacts. Zhuoan stood at the edge of the stage and frowned slightly. When Xu Yang came out to challenge him, he saw Xu Yang and Virtual Corona exchange meaningful glances. He had a feeling that Xu Yang might not be as simple as he seemed on the surface. Moreover, he also found that the countless tribulations around the stage seemed to be deliberately created by Xu Yang. Otherwise, there was no need to make the tribulations in the Qian Kuan world so large. Thinking of this, a demonic red light flashed in the depths of Zhuoan's eyes. Then, his eyes looked through the layers of tribulations and saw everything that was happening in the stage. Chapter 44-24. Li Yu and Xu Yang were in the midst of a fierce battle. Li Yu had the upper hand and forced Xu Yang to retreat step by step. He kept retreating towards the edge of the arena as if he could not hold on any longer. Li Yu's eyes revealed a trace of smugness. If this continued, he would be able to completely defeat Xu Yang in less than 15 minutes and successfully obtain the 20 points. Thinking of this, Li Yu became even more pleased. He did not pay as much attention to Xu Yang in front of him as he did in the beginning. He thought that Xu Yang would be defeated by him sooner or later. However, Li Yu did not see that although Xu Yang seemed to be retreating, he was actually accumulating strength and waiting for a thunderous attack. Especially when Xu Yang saw the contempt in Li Yu's eyes, the corners of his mouth revealed an undetectable smile. Zhuoan saw all of this. He wanted to remind him, but he realized that there was some kind of shielding restriction on the arena. It was impossible to communicate with one another through spiritual sense or other methods. It seemed that the organizer had set this up in advance to prevent anyone from interfering with the battle. I hope Li Yu can see the abnormality in advance, Zhuoan thought to himself. Finally, Xu Yang was forced to the edge of the arena by Li Yu. Xu Yang was panting. His face was pale and bloodless, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. He looked like he was about to run out of energy. Seeing this, Li Yu was overjoyed. He held his saber with both hands and raised it above his head. He suddenly leaped up and slashed down at Xu Yang, who was at the edge of the arena. He was confident that with this slash, Xu Yang would definitely be severely injured and eliminated. Xu Yang lowered his head, but the corners of his mouth revealed a huge arc. At this moment, his aura suddenly soared, and he actually jumped to the peak of the late stage of the universe tribulation. He was only half a step away from the peak of the universe tribulation. Xu Yang lightly stepped on the ground with his right foot as if he had rehearsed this countless times. He easily dodged Li Yu's attack, and the hilt of the divine spear in his right hand suddenly tightened. Like a bolt of lightning, it streaked through the air and pierced towards Li Yu's back. Oh no! Xu Yang actually hid a portion of his strength. He has been pretending to be weak just now in order to numb me. When he felt Xu Yang's aura explode once again, Li Yu's expression changed greatly. He immediately thought of the reason and cursed in his heart. Earlier, he'd been too careless, and he'd thought that Xu Yang was weak to the point of being unable to resist. Thus, he'd used his full strength in this attack, and it was like an arrow on a bowstring that had no choice but to be released. It was utterly impossible for him to change his move midway. Xu Yang's timing was also very good. In the instant that he couldn't change his move, the divine spear in his hand pierced towards his back. Boom! A deafening sound rang out as Xu Yang's divine blade fiercely smashed into the edge of the stage, creating a huge crater. Xu Yang's attack was like a cold and cunning viper. It pierced through Xu Yang's back from a tricky angle, piercing through his chest. Li Yu spat out a large mouthful of blood. His left hand grasped the handle of the spear. He wanted to break free, but he found that Xu Yang was faster. Xu Yang's right hand shook, and the divine spear vibrated at an extremely fast frequency. Waves of sharp and terrifying light constantly flickered on the handle of the spear, erupting with extremely terrifying energy fluctuations. Li Yu screamed. His chest completely exploded, and a huge hole appeared. His heart was completely crushed by the terrifying power of the divine spear. Li Yu knelt on the ground and kept coughing up blood. At the same time, he gathered his divine power to heal the wound on his chest and the blood that kept gushing out. His injuries were extremely serious. If he didn't heal them in time, it was very likely that it would leave behind a huge hidden danger. Xu Yang grinned and rushed out again, launching an even more fierce attack on Li Yu. Xu Yang, I admit. Li Yu's expression changed drastically when he saw that Xu Yang was still not stopping. He was now seriously injured, and Xu Yang was slightly stronger than him. If he continued to fight, there was no chance of winning at all, so he planned to admit defeat. However, before Li Yu could finish his words, Xu Yang's attack fell like a storm. The divine spear pierced into his limbs at an extremely fast speed, quickly destroying the tissues and meridians in his limbs, causing him to be unable to move in an instant. At the same time, Xu Yang also used a certain divine soul attack to severely injure Li Yu's divine soul before stopping. When Li Yu collapsed on the ground and could only twitch unconsciously, Xu Yang stopped. He raised his right hand, and the countless calamities around him dissipated. After the calamity dissipated, the people on the high platforms around the arena could finally see the situation in the arena clearly. When they found that Li Yu had been beaten until he was almost half crippled and was lying limp on the ground, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Li Yu was too miserable. Not only was there a huge hole in his chest, but his limbs were also twisted. What was even more shocking was that there was a lot of blood flowing out from between Li Yu's eyebrows. Clearly, his divine soul was also severely injured. Even though Li Yu was an expert of the great calamity of universe level and had extremely tenacious vitality, he still needed a lot of resources and time to completely recover from such serious injuries. Li Yu, Li Shuo and Li Zi's expressions changed drastically. They hurriedly rushed into the arena and helped the heavily injured Li Yu up. Xu Yang wins this battle. The Xulong family gains 20 points, and the Xuling family loses 20 points. Gold Glorious Lord announced expressionlessly. Xu Yang, you were too heavy-handed. If Li Yu's injuries were any more serious, his life would be in danger. Li Shuo looked angrily at Xu Yang and shouted. Xu Yang raised his chin slightly and cast a sidelong glance at Li Shuo. Fists and legs have no eyes. Deaths and injuries are inevitable during a battle. If you're not convinced, you can challenge me. I'll accept. Li Shuo was furious, but Li Zi stopped him. Li Shuo, don't be impulsive. Let's take Li Yu down to treat his injuries first. We'll listen to cousin Li Ying's arrangements later, Li Zi hurriedly said. Only then did Li Shuo regain his senses. He and Li Zi carried the heavily injured Li Yu down, and then they fed him the healing pills they had already prepared. After swallowing several healing pills, Li Yu's injuries finally stopped worsening. However, Li Yu's mind was still somewhat unclear. His face was constantly covered in cold sweat as he muttered to himself. Captain, I want to challenge Xu Yang. Li Shuo's eyes were filled with hostility. Don't act rashly now. The Xulong and Xuling families should have joined forces. If you issue a challenge, the Xulong family can refuse and send out stronger members. Li Ying said in a deep voice. Zhuowen frowned slightly. Li Ying was too timid. Now that Li Yu had been beaten to such a state, he still didn't intend to take the initiative to attack. This would easily affect the morale of his team members. However, Zhuowen knew that he didn't have the right to make the decision. The decision of the team was entirely up to Li Ying. He didn't have the final say. Now, let's continue waiting. I want to see what tricks the Xulong and Xuling families have up their sleeves. Remember, you must act according to your strength. If you really can't beat them, you must admit defeat immediately. After all, there's still the team competition, Li Ying said in a deep voice. At this moment, another person jumped onto the stage. This person was tall and sturdy, more than 2 meters tall. His arms were extremely thick and solid, thicker than an average person's thigh. His muscles were bulging and terrifying. It's the Xuling family's Mai Dong. Many spectators on the high platform around the arena recognized this sturdy man. Mai Dong's reputation in the Xuling family wasn't small. This fellow was a genius second only to Mi Liang in the Xuling family. Moreover, his ranking on the Xuling divine list wasn't low, reaching around the 20th rank. His strength was even stronger than Xu Yang's. Chapter 44-25. My Dong stood on the stage. His huge body was very eye-catching. His eyes were not big and seemed to be squinting. However, the light in his eyes was extremely sharp and cold. My Dong's gaze swept the surroundings. Suddenly, he stared at Li Yu, who was in the Shueisha family's group, and said indifferently, "I want to challenge Li Yu. 20 points. The moment he said that, the faces of the Void family members changed. Li Yu was already heavily injured by Xu Yang. His mind was not clear. How could he have the strength to fight on the stage? My Dong was definitely doing it on purpose. Lord Gold, glorious Lord, My Dong is violating the rules. Li Yu is already heavily injured and has no strength to fight. It is unreasonable for him to challenge him on purpose." Li Ying stood up, cupped his hands, and asked Gold Lord, who was on the northern tower. Jinyao Jun glanced indifferently at Li Ying and said, "If Li Yu admitted defeat and withdrew from the competition, then he would indeed be exempted from being challenged. However, he didn't admit defeat, so he's still a member of your Void Knights team. Therefore, although My Dong's request is excessive, it is still in accordance with the rules." Li Ying frowned and sighed, "I am the captain of the Void family. I have the right to cancel Li Yu's membership. Now, Li Yu is no longer a member of our team. Li Ying, don't play tricks. When I challenged him, Li Yu was still a member of your team. Either you let him go on the stage or you can use your right to refuse a second time." My Dong grinned and said. Zhuo Wen silently watched this scene and his heart sank slightly. He had already guessed the tactics of the Xuelong and Xueju clans. They were purposely trying to let the Xueju clan use up all 3 rejections. After that, the Void family would not have the chance to refuse any more challenges. Li Ying also thought of this. His face was gloomy. He knew that he had no other choice. He could only use his right to refuse again. "We refuse," Li Ying said in a low voice. My Dong grinned. He was not discouraged by Li Ying's refusal. Instead, he revealed an expression as if his scheme had succeeded. "Your Void family has not chosen an opponent on your own. Your master My Dong is standing right here. If anyone from your Void Realm aristocratic family comes up, your master My Dong will beat you until you cry for your parent." My Dong crossed his arms in front of his chest and did not jump down from the arena. Instead, he stood on the arena and shouted. His tone was full of disdain, angering many of the young cultivators of the Shueishan aristocratic family. "This My Dong is too arrogant. Does he really think that our Void family is easy to bully? I'll deal with him." Li Zi was so angry that her teeth were itching. She clenched her fists tightly and said while gritting her teeth. But Li Ying stopped Li Zi and said, "Li Zi, don't be rash. You're still not My Dong's match. I'll go." Zhuowen finally spoke. He felt that it was time for him to make a move. This My Dong was perfect for him to test his skills. "You don't have to go either. I'll go." Li Ying looked at Zhuowen indifferently. He didn't even look at Zhuowen's attitude. He jumped up and landed on the opposite side of the ring. He looked coldly at My Dong, who had his arms crossed. "My Dong, let me be your opponent," Li Ying said indifferently. My Dong, who was still clamoring, suddenly stiffened. He looked at Shell Ying with fear and suddenly grinned. "What ability do I, My Dong, have to make Captain Shell Ying come here personally? We refuse to accept the challenge this time." At the same time, Mi Liang, who was below the arena, smiled and rejected Li Ying's challenge. My Dong jumped down from the arena and returned to the Shueishan aristocratic family's team. Whoosh! The instant My Dong returned to the group, Mi Liang, who was standing at the front of the group, leapt up. Like a bolt of black lightning, he flew up and landed firmly on the stage. "Li Ying, you're also a genius in the top 10 of the Shueishan divine list. Let me fight you. I wonder if you've improved over the years. You and I are both captains. We can't fight like the others, right? I'll bet 50 points. If you think it's too much or if you're afraid, you can choose to refuse. I won't laugh at you," Mi Liang said fearlessly. Li Ying's face darkened. When Mi Liang said this, he really couldn't refuse. If he refused, he would lose face. If he was talked about in the future, his reputation would be damaged. If he agreed, it would be 50 points. Although Li Ying had broken through, the probability of him winning against Mi Liang was not high. At most, they would be tied. Li Ying, answer me. I've said it before. If you're afraid, I won't laugh at you. After all, you're weaker than me. Isn't that right and proper? You can use your right to refuse for the last time. Mi Liang grinned. It looked bright but was actually very sinister. Li Ying's face alternated between green and white. He coldly looked at Mi Liang, who was smiling, and said in a deep voice, as the captain of the Xueshan family, I have no reason to retreat. I accept your challenge. Mi Liang's smile became even brighter. He laughed and said, Li Ying, I really didn't misjudge you. I knew you would accept. After all, you and I are both geniuses in the top 10 of the Xueshan divine list. We both have our own beliefs and determination. Li Ying coldly snorted. He simply ignored Mi Liang's perfunctory compliment and said, Stop talking nonsense. Let's begin. After saying this, Li Ying's aura suddenly changed. Surging airflow swept out from his body like an angry dragon and quickly spread in all directions. At the same time, blazing light golden divine power floated out of Li Ying's acupuncture points. At first, the divine power was still light golden, but as time passed, it became denser and denser. It turned into a blazing pure gold and finally turned into platinum. The platinum divine power was like a rolling wave that soared into the sky. It constantly condensed in the void behind Li Ying and finally turned into an incomparably huge Dharma idol. Li Ying's cosmic idol was hundreds of feet tall. It was completely platinum and had a dragon's head and a human's body. It held a huge trident. At this moment, this dragon-headed Dharma idol was like a huge sun that had just risen, blooming with blazing and terrifying platinum light. Under the Dharma idol's feet, there were countless wave-like anomalies. From afar, this Dharma idol seemed to be standing on top of a platinum sea, riding the wind and breaking the waves. Below the stage, Zhuoan silently looked at Li Ying's cosmic idol. The latter clearly had no intention of revealing his strength. At this moment, the aura he revealed was only at the middle stage of the cosmic idol. Mi Liang clasped his hands behind his back. His body was surrounded by a strange dark green divine power. He stepped forward. With every step he took, his aura became more and more blazing. The dark green divine power around him suddenly soared and formed a cosmic idol that was even larger than Li Ying's in the void behind him. Mi Liang's cosmic idol looked like a ferocious ghost. Its appearance was similar to a human's. It had a huge head and 3 faces with different expressions. Its lower body was like a centipede, with thousands of legs and a very long body. The 3 faces of this strange cosmic idol were constantly spitting out strange green mist that lingered around its body, making its figure appear faintly discernible. In the whole world, only the crisp sound of the cosmic idol's thousands of legs touching could be heard. Chapter 44-26. This Mi Liang is indeed at the late stage of the cosmic transformation stage. Zhuoan silently looked at the aura that Mi Liang was releasing and thought to himself. From the strength that Mi Liang displayed, it was clear that the former had been at the late stage of the cosmic transformation stage for a while and was much stronger than Li Ying, who had just broken through. However, Li Ying might still have a chance. Right now, Li Ying's biggest advantage was that he was still hiding some of his strength, and Mi Liang did not know that Li Ying had broken through. This gave Mi Liang a misconception that as long as Li Ying could grasp this advantage, he might be able to defeat Mi Liang. Of course, timing was very important. Once missed, Li Ying would have no chance of winning. Li Zi, do you think that cousin Li Ying can defeat Mi Liang? On the side, Li Shuo felt Mi Liang's terrifying aura and his face turned pale as he subconsciously asked Li Zi. Li Zi's expression did not look good as she said in a low but firm voice, Li Shuo, don't forget that this is not cousin Li Ying's full strength. Once he reveals his full strength, he will win. Zhuoan shook his head inwardly. This Li Zi had blind confidence in Li Ying. Although Li Ying's strength was not bad, Mi Liang was stronger. When fighting against such an opponent, one could not be careless. There is still a certain gap between Li Ying and Mi Liang. If Li Ying wants to win, it all depends on whether he can grasp the crucial timing. Timing is very important, Zhuowen reminded. Li Zi glared at Zhuowen and said impolitely, "What do you mean? I think you're just jealous of cousin Li Ying. You want cousin Li Ying to lose, right?" Li Zi, young master Zhuo, did not say anything bad about cousin Li Ying. Furthermore, his strength has already been proven on the Void Hell God list. How can you say that about him? Li Shuo retorted unhappily. He felt that Li Zi was being too unreasonable. Zhuowen was just expressing his opinion as a guest, but in Li Zi's mouth, it became jealousy. Li Zi coldly snorted and said, "He is just jealous." He was unable to take up the position of team leader, and it was taken by cousin Li Ying. Isn't it normal for him to say bad things about cousin Li Ying? Moreover, his words were filled with jealousy. Even I could hear his dissatisfaction. Zhuowen frowned. He was just speaking the truth. This Li Zi was really unreasonable. Also, he was the one who took the initiative to give up the position of team leader. How could Li Zi say that he was not up to the task? If he hadn't taken the initiative to give it up, Shell Ying wouldn't have been able to become the captain. Zhuowen no longer spoke and cast his gaze on the stage. He knew that it was meaningless to argue with Li Zi. No matter what he said, she would only think that everything he said was wrong. Arguing with a prejudiced person, wasn't that just asking for trouble? Seeing that Zhuowen no longer spoke, Li Zi raised her chin slightly, and with the posture of a victor, her gaze also fell on the stage. At this moment, on the stage, Li Ying and Mi Liang were completely locked in battle. The two huge cosmic manifestations were directly engaged in hand-to-hand combat. Terrifying energy shockwaves swept out like a hurricane, blowing outside the stage and even outside the arena. However, an extremely powerful barrier was set up around the stage. The moment the shockwaves of the battle spread out, it was blocked by this invisible barrier. Hong hong hong! Li Ying's dragon-headed cosmic manifestation held a trident and suddenly raised it above its head. Endless platinum waves swept forward with overwhelming momentum, drowning Mi Liang's cosmic manifestation. However, Mi Liang's cosmic manifestation was not afraid at all. Its 1,000 legs quickly stepped out, and its speed was extremely fast, easily dodging the platinum waves. Its huge body circled behind the dragon-headed cosmic manifestation, and its slender body twisted, wrapping around the dragon-headed cosmic manifestation layer by layer. In an instant, the dragon-headed cosmic manifestation was at a disadvantage. At the same time, under the feet of the two huge cosmic manifestations, on the stage, Li Ying and Mi Liang were engaged in a fierce battle. Li Ying held a platinum trident in his hand, and with a thrust of the trident, countless halberd shadows filled the sky. His figure flickered like a ghost, making it impossible for people to see his specific figure. Mi Liang, on the other hand, looked relaxed, holding the ghost head divine saber in his hand. The muscles on his arms bulged, looking full of muscle beauty. As he slashed out with his saber, rays of saber light poured down like rain. Mi Liang's blade aura was extraordinary. Every time the blade aura came down, the blade aura would transform into a ghostly phantom. These ghostly phantoms seemed to have a mind of their own. They opened their ferocious mouths and tore apart the halberd phantoms, easily tearing them apart. "Open for me!" Mi Liang suddenly raised the ghost head divine saber with both hands and slashed down fiercely. Rolling divine power condensed in the divine saber. A huge saber light that seemed to penetrate the heavens and the earth appeared, and then revealed a huge ghost head that almost covered the entire arena. The ghost head opened its huge mouth, which was full of sharp teeth, and ruthlessly swallowed the countless halberd shadows that Li Ying had painstakingly stabbed out. Roar! The ghost head roared and fell straight down. A huge mouth that was half the size of the arena covered the top of Li Ying's head. The area was so large that Li Ying could not escape. Li Ying looked dignified. He bit his thumb, and then wiped the blood essence that splashed out on the trident. The platinum trident squirmed, and after swallowing Li Ying's blood essence, it was dyed with a strange light red color. Li Ying rushed into the ghost head's mouth, and with a loud roar, he used the blood halberd shadow. The blood halberd shadow was like a strange red shadow, flashing by. Then, the originally huge and terrifying ghost head paused for a moment, and then collapsed inch by inch. Li Ying, you have lost. The moment Li Ying used his divine power to destroy the ghost head, Mi Liang fell from the sky at an extremely fast speed. His target was Li Ying. Sky Breaker. Li Ying's right hand held the saber's hilt tightly, and the blade fell straight down. The dark green saber light suddenly burst out, and the sky was dyed a strange dark green. The divine saber in Li Ying's hand became longer and longer, and it went straight into the sky as if it was going to cut the entire sky. The saber fell, and the air was tumbling, and the clouds were raging. It was as if time and space were going to flow backward, and it directly hit Li Ying's body. Li Ying's eyes were filled with fear, and he hurriedly blocked it, as if he did not expect Mi Liang to have such a move. Mi Liang saw Li Ying's expression clearly, and he grinned, his heart full of self-satisfaction. Boom! The skybreaker fell, and Li Ying's whole body was brought down to the arena by the saber light. Then, countless cracks appeared on the surface of the arena. The arena was originally made of special materials, and it could withstand an extremely large amount of power, but because of this, it still cracked. This showed how terrifying Mi Liang's attack was. Chapter 44-27. Above the arena, endless dust spread and shrouded the surroundings. Mi Liang floated in midair and looked down at the surface of the arena that was beginning to crack. The smile on his face grew wider. During this battle, he did not take Li Ying too seriously because the gap between him and Li Ying was not small. After all, he was in the late cosmic Dharma stage while Li Ying was only in the middle cosmic Dharma stage. There was a small gap between them. In the virtual Hell Divine list, Mi Liang was ranked 3rd while Li Ying was only ranked 6th. The difference of 3 places was like heaven and earth. The gap between the two was not so easy to make up. Unless Li Ying broke through to the late cosmic Dharma stage, he would still not be Mi Liang's opponent. Mi Liang had been in the late cosmic Dharma stage for many years. How could he be a match for Li Ying who had just broken through? Li Ying, this is a battle that you are destined to lose. There is a big gap between our cultivation and strength. You should surrender so that I won't be too harsh on you. Mi Liang waved his sleeve and the dust on the arena was swept away. On the surface of the arena, Li Ying was lying pathetically in the pit, his face pale. Poochie. Li Ying spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked up at Mi Liang and said in a low voice, "Don't even think about it. I can't give up on this battle." Mi Liang shook his head and mocked, "If that's the case, don't blame me for being too harsh on you." With that, Mi Liang's eyes became sharp and cold. He clenched his right hand and the divine saber quickly fell with his body. His target was Li Ying, who was still lying in the pit. The two of them were getting closer and closer. When they were about 10 meters away, Li Ying, who should have been seriously injured, suddenly had a strange light in his eyes. With Shell Ying as the center, endless waves of platinum suddenly surged, and Shell Ying's aura rapidly became stronger at this moment. After a while, Li Ying's aura directly broke through the middle cosmic Dharma stage and reached the late cosmic Dharma stage. At this moment, it was as if Shell Ying had been reborn. The platinum wave around him was even stronger, and it immediately drowned Mi Liang. When he was only 5 meters away from Shell Ying, Mi Liang's figure stagnated for a moment. This was winning Shell's chance. He immediately made his move. The trident in his hand pierced towards winning Shell's forehead at an extremely tricky angle. Shell Ying's movements were not sloppy at all. They were precise and ruthless, as if he had rehearsed them many times. Mi Liang's pupils shrank to the size of needles. He did not expect winning Shell to have been hiding his true power. Even when he had taken a hit, he had been pretending to be himself. That made him careless, and he did not expect winning Shell's attack. As the trident drew closer and closer, Mi Liang felt a sense of impending doom. He no longer cared about anything else and directly ignited his blood essence. For a short period of time, he erupted with a tremendous amount of strength, breaking free from the confinement of the platinum waves and doing his best to shift his body. In the end, he managed to dodge winning Shell's Shawkill attack. But winning Shell was very cunning. He saw that his fatal attack had not hit, so he prepared a second attack. While Mi Liang was weak, he stabbed towards his heart. Fart. Mi Liang's left chest was pierced by the trident. The intense pain made him scream. Winning Shell's eyes were calm. At this moment, he gathered his god power into the trident, causing the power of the trident to reach a terrifying level. Boom. Boom. The left side of Mi Liang's chest exploded, and the terrifying godly power flowed through his meridians and began to explode, destroying all the flesh and blood in his body. Mi Liang used his last bit of strength to break free of the trident. He shouted, "I admit defeat." Winning Shell had planned to continue attacking. He wanted to give Mi Liang another blow, but he had already admitted defeat. He could not continue fighting. "Cousin Mi Liang, are you okay?" Two members of the Void Chi aristocratic family immediately came over and helped Mi Liang back down the stage. Mi Liang's condition was very bad. All of his flesh and blood had been destroyed. Now, even moving was difficult for him. Although the divine power in his body was rapidly healing the injuries on his body, due to the severity of his injuries, it would take a long time for him to fully recover. That bastard Winning Shell is really good at enduring. He actually hid his strength after taking a hit from me. This time, it's my loss. Mi Liang's face was gloomy. He reluctantly turned his head and looked at Winning Shell, who was walking down the stage. He shouted angrily, "Cousin Mi Liang, Winning Shell has already exposed his strength. There is nothing to be afraid of. I think Virtual Corona will finish him off. As long as Winning Shell is crippled, the Void family will be at our mercy." Mai Dong hurriedly advised. Mi Liang's eyes flickered. He couldn't help but look at Virtual Corona not far away. Coincidentally, Virtual Corona was also looking at him. Then, Mi Liang angrily discovered that Virtual Corona actually revealed a mocking smile. "This Virtual Corona is really good at enduring," Mi Liang mumbled with an ugly expression. On the Western Tower, the Void family's patriarch, Mi Haomiao, had a gloomy expression. He didn't expect Winning Shell to hide his strength so deeply. As a result, Mi Liang was careless and was defeated. On the Eastern Tower, Yinglong Li had a happy expression. He thought even more highly of Winning Shell in his heart. Winning Shell got 50 points in one go. Excluding the 20 points that Li Yu lost, their Void family still won 30 points. Winning Shell had just walked down the stage when he covered his mouth and coughed violently. Zhuoan, Li Shuo, and the others could clearly see that Winning Shell's right hand was covered with blood. It seemed that Winning Shell didn't come easy this time. He had already suffered heavy injuries. "Cousin Li Ying, hurry up and take this healing pill. This battle is truly wonderful. With Cousin Li Ying here, our Void Tier family will have a great chance of winning this time." Li Zi quickly took out the healing pill that Yinglong Li had prepared for them and fed it to Winning Shell. Winning Shell took the pill without hesitation and swallowed it. He then sat cross-legged on the ground and began to heal his injuries. He was now the pillar of the team. If he left the stage early, the Void family would no longer have any hope in this large competition. Although Mi Liang had already left the stage early, the opponent still had an expert like Virtual Corona. Thinking about how powerful Virtual Corona was, Winning Shell's heart became very heavy. He had to heal his injuries as soon as possible. Suddenly, a rather shocking noise came from the entire arena. On the high platforms around the arena, cheers that could topple mountains and overturn seas sounded out. Zhuo Wen raised his head to look towards the arena, and his gaze focused slightly as he noticed a young man with a pale countenance slowly descending onto the arena. The young man's face was slightly round and bloodless. He looked like a corpse that had been dead for a long time. There was no extra expression on his face. He was the number one genius of the Void family, the second place of the Void Yama Divine list, Virtual Corona. Chapter 44-28. Virtual Corona had an important position among the younger generation of Void Yang Divine City. It was the dream of many young cultivators. From the reactions of many people around the gladiator arena, it was clear that Xu Mianyang held a very high position in their hearts. Everyone cheered for him. Phew. That guy is finally going to fight. Mi Liang looked at Virtual Corona's back and breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, a trace of jealousy flashed in his eyes. Although his ranking on the Void Yang Divine list was only one place lower than Mi Liang, Virtual Corona had completely crushed his limelight. Virtual Corona enjoyed the cheers of the crowd. His expressionless eyes slowly fell on the Void Yang family's team, and then on Li Ying, who was sitting cross-legged and healing his injuries. At that moment, Li Ying felt as if he was being stared at by a poisonous snake. His entire body turned cold and his limbs stiffened. Li Ying, I, Virtual Corona, challenge you with 100 points. Are you willing to accept the challenge? You can refuse, but I will issue a second challenge with 100 points. At that time, you won't have the right to refuse. Virtual Corona's tone was emotionless, as if he was talking about a trivial matter. Everyone in the Void Yang family's team fell into silence. Li Zi and Li Shuo opened their mouths wide and looked at Virtual Corona in horror. They did not expect Virtual Corona to be so determined to challenge Li Ying. Moreover, he had to pay a high price of 100 points. This was too much for them. Li Ying opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with helplessness and anger. He knew very well that he could not avoid this battle. After a short moment of silence, Li Ying sighed and said, I accept. Cousin Li Ying, your injuries are not fully healed yet. Let's refuse. Li Zi hurriedly said. Li Ying shook his head and said, it's useless to refuse now. Everyone has the right to challenge 3 times. Virtual Corona has already decided to challenge me. Unless I withdraw from the competition, this battle is unavoidable. I will try my best to injure Virtual Corona. That way, he will be less of a threat to you. After this battle, I'll rely on you. After he finished speaking, Li Ying stood up and jumped onto the stage. Zhuoan raised his eyebrows. He had a higher opinion of Li Ying. Although Li Ying had many shortcomings and was not very generous, he was still able to see the big picture at a critical moment. However, he was not optimistic about Li Ying. After all, Li Ying could barely fight with Mi Liang, and he had to rely on tricks to win. Li Ying. Li Ying's was. Li Ying, although your strength is not good, your courage is commendable. The corners of Xu Mianyang's mouth curled into a cold smile. Li Ying's eyes were gloomy. Virtual Corona, don't be happy too early. You and I are both in the late stage of Cosmic Avatar. Even if you're stronger than me, it won't be easy for you to defeat me. You'll know whether it's easy or not after we try. You go first. I can let you make 3 moves first. Otherwise, if you're defeated by me in 1 move, it would be really boring. Virtual Corona put her hands behind her back and said jokingly. Li Ying was furious. This Virtual Corona was looking down on him. You said it. Don't blame me if you lose. Li Ying did not reject Virtual Corona's suggestion. Instead, he was happy. He knew that this was a chance to defeat Virtual Corona. Li Ying completely released his aura and released his cosmic avatar with a huge dragon head and a human body. Rolling platinum waves swept over. The dragon-headed cosmic avatar rode the wind and waves. As soon as it appeared, it launched the most violent attack on Virtual Corona. Virtual Corona stood in place. She did not move, but the aura around her became more and more terrifying. Suddenly, a strange pale divine power appeared and surrounded her body, turning into strange white arms. These arms were densely entwined together. They looked lifeless, as if they were the arms of a corpse. At the same time, the surroundings fell into a gloomy coldness. The coldness was bone-chilling, as if it could freeze one's soul. Boom, boom, boom. The dragon-headed cosmic avatar held a trident and suddenly swung it downward. The mountain-like trident fell and landed on Virtual Corona's head. However, the strange thing was that the moment the trident fell, the countless hands that lingered around Xu Mianzhong's body blocked it. These strange arms were constantly cut and shattered by the trident. Strange blood splashed out from the broken arms. What was even stranger was that the severed arm actually began to grow a new pale arm, which continued to resist the trident in a tyrannical manner. Therefore, Li Ying found that the more the dragon-headed cosmic avatar attacked Virtual Corona, the more the strange pale arms in front of it completely blocking the trident. Li Ying, is this all you've got? Virtual Corona stood behind the countless pale arms and asked expressionlessly. Li Ying was furious. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat blood on the trident, using the blood shadow halberd. Countless halberd shadows swept out, and within those halberd shadows, a strange red light flashed, piercing through the countless pale arms at an extremely fast speed, rushing behind the pale arms, and heading straight for the center of the void crown. Rip! After the crimson halberd shadow pierced through the pale arms, it directly pierced through Virtual Corona and nailed it to the ground like a nail. Li Ying's mouth revealed a joyful smile. Li Zi and Li Shuo, who were below the stage, were so excited that they almost screamed. However, it was too early for them to be happy. The skin of Virtual Corona, who was nailed to the ground by the crimson halberd shadow, suddenly melted, revealing strange pale arms. At the same time, on the other side of the pale arms, Virtual Corona's figure slowly appeared. He was still expressionless and just looked at Li Ying indifferently. 3 moves have passed. Li Ying, you have no more chances to attack. Virtual Corona's expression was cold. His right hand suddenly pinched the void, and countless pale divine power condensed in the void. Then, Li Ying was horrified to find that in the depths of the void, a pale bone hammer that was even larger than his avatar appeared. The surface of the bone hammer was covered with sharp bone spikes. The entire surface of the bone hammer exuded a terrifying sense of coldness. The huge bone hammer fell from the sky and landed directly on the head of the dragon-headed avatar. The dragon-headed avatar raised the trident with both hands, trying to block the bone hammer that was even larger than him. However, it was a complete failure. The bone hammer fell with unparalleled momentum and completely crushed the dragon-headed avatar into pieces. The bone hammer stood upside down in the center of the stage. The destruction of the dragon-headed avatar caused Li Ying to suffer heavy injuries. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale, and he involuntarily knelt on the ground on one knee, panting heavily. Chapter 44-29. The moment Shell Ying knelt on the ground, Virtual Corona's eyes were filled with murderous intent. With a stomp of his right foot, countless pale arms pierced through the void like a river of arms, wrapping around Shell Ying. Li Ying's expression changed drastically. Looking at the densely packed pale white arms around him, he knew that the gap between him and Xu Mianyang was too great. Even if he used all his strength in this battle, he would not be able to cause any harm to Xu Mianyang. I admit, Shell Ying wanted to surrender, but as soon as he said those 2 words, a figure rushed out from the countless arms behind him and attacked the back of Shell Ying's head at an extremely fast speed. Shell Ying did not have time to admit defeat. He hurriedly turned around and placed the trident in front of him to block the attack behind him. Bang! A huge force erupted, and Shell Ying spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body was suspended in the air, and he flew backward awkwardly. The figure immediately merged into the surrounding arms after its attack failed. When it reappeared, it had already drilled out from the arms behind Shell Ying, who was closest to him, and launched another fatal attack on Shell Ying. Shell Ying was exhausted as he defended himself. His breath was getting weaker and weaker, and he kept coughing out blood as if he was going to die at any time. Shell Ying was sent flying again. His breathing became more rapid, and his whole body was sore. It was as if he could not even move. Shell Ying's eyes were filled with fear. He raised his head with difficulty and saw a figure floating in the air above the countless arms. The figure had his hands behind his back and was looking down at him coldly. He was Virtual Corona. Virtual Corona's eyes were emotionless. He looked down at Shell Ying and said lightly, "Shell Ying, this is my last attack. Whether you can survive or not depends on your own ability." After that, Virtual Corona pressed down with his right hand and clenched his 5 fingers. The surrounding arms began to expand rapidly like a hurricane. Countless veins began to appear on the surface of the arms like cracks. It looked ferocious and terrifying. In these pale arms, there was an extremely terrifying energy brewing. Shell Ying's pupils shrank to the size of needles. He panted heavily and shouted, "I admit defeat, I admit defeat." However, as soon as Li Ying admitted defeat, the countless arms around him exploded. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. The blood-colored meridians were like the sharpest weapons in the world. They densely covered the surroundings and connected Li Ying's entire body. Evil God's blood explosion. The virtual corona spoke softly and looked down coldly at Shel Ying, who was entangled in countless flesh and veins, as if he was drowning. The white and flawless arena was completely dyed red by the strange blood. At a glance, it looked more like the scene of a large-scale slaughterhouse. The thick smell of blood could be clearly smelled in the entire arena. Virtual corona slowly landed on the ring, looking straight ahead calmly. On the other side of the ring, among the countless flesh and blood, a blood-colored figure stood upright. He held a trident in both hands and planted it on the ground. Li Ying stared at Virtual Corona and said, "I admitted defeat. Why didn't you stop?" Virtual Corona said expressionlessly, "Evil God's blood explosion is a god art that cannot be interrupted once used. You can only blame yourself for not admitting defeat earlier." Bang! Li Ying spat out a mouthful of blood and fell straight to the ground. The entire arena resounded with the sound of his body hitting the ground. Virtual Corona wins, 100 points. Gold Lord said calmly as he glanced at Xu Mianyang, who was on the stage, from his lofty position. Cousin Li Ying. Below the stage, Li Zi and Li Shuo turned pale with fright. They hurriedly rushed up the stage and carried Li Ying down. At this moment, Li Ying's consciousness was very blurred. He kept coughing up blood and his breath was extremely weak. The moment Li Ying was carried down, Li Yinglong, who was on the east tower, could no longer sit still. He jumped down and came to Li Ying's side. He picked up Li Ying's right hand and checked Li Ying's injuries. His expression became very ugly. Li Ying's flesh and blood were all shattered. His internal organs were also badly damaged. His soul, in particular, was heavily injured. His entire consciousness was muddled. In Li Ying's state, the Void family would have to pay a huge price and take a long time to completely recover. Li Ying was not far from death. If Virtual Corona had been more ruthless, Li Ying might have died on the spot. Virtual Corona, you're too ruthless. Li Yinglong's expression was gloomy. He looked at the expressionless Virtual Corona and scolded. In the arena, fists and feet have no eyes. Isn't it normal to accidentally injure someone? If Li Ying was strong enough and killed me in the arena, I wouldn't say anything. His mistake was that he was too weak. Virtual Corona said calmly. Once those words were spoken, everyone from the Shuesheng family became furious. Virtual Corona was really despicable. Not only did she almost kill Li Ying, but she also spoke with such conviction. Li Yinglong, you're the head of the family. You should be more magnanimous. How can you be so calculative? The winner takes all. This has been a common principle since ancient times. Don't you understand this principle? Mi Hao Miao spoke. His tone was full of mockery. Xu Jiering didn't say anything, but the mocking smile on his lips hurt the hearts of all the members of the Shuesheng clan. As the person involved in this incident, Xu Jiering did not even bother to apologize. He was looking down on the Void family. Your Void family can choose to take revenge. I'll stand here and wait. Virtual Corona put her hands behind her back. Her emotionless eyes fell on the Void family's team members below the arena. Her voice was flat and contemptuous. You're going too far. Li Shuo and Li Zi were so angry that their teeth itched and their fists were clenched tightly. Li Ying was the strongest person in the Void family's team. Now, even he almost died in the hands of Virtual Corona, let alone them. They would only become cannon fodder if they went up. Why don't I go up and try this Virtual Corona? When everyone was silent, Zhuoan suddenly spoke. He looked at Li Yinglong, Li Zi, and the others seriously. Prince Shuo, don't be rash. Virtual Corona is trying to provoke you. Now that cousin Li Ying has lost to her, it's not wise to challenge Virtual Corona. Li Shuo quickly advised. Li Zi sneered. Why would you go up when even cousin Li Ying is no match for her? Don't you think our Void family is humiliated enough? Don't you use your brain to think before you speak? Zhuo Wen coldly glanced at Li Zi. The latter had mocked and ridiculed him from the very beginning, so he did not care about it. However, now that the Void family's team was in trouble, this woman did not think of a solution. Instead, she was mocking her teammates. She was truly unreasonable. Chapter 44:30. Zhuowen, Li Shuo is right. We can't be impulsive now. Currently, our Void family's team is still ranked second. As long as we are careful, we still have hope of securing second place. Li Ying's injuries are too severe. He can only withdraw from the competition. Now, we can only rely on you. The position of team leader will be handed over to you. Even if we lose, it's not your responsibility. It can only be said that this is the fate of our Void family. Li Yinglong patted Zhuowen on the shoulder, then brought the severely wounded Li Ying back to the East Tower, disheartened. I only recognize cousin Li Ying as the team leader. You are an outsider. What qualifications do you have to be the team leader? Right now, cousin Li Ying is heavily injured and unconscious. I should be the team leader from now on. Give me the position of team leader. After Li Yinglong left, Li Zi spread her hands towards Zhuowen and unceremoniously asked for the position of team leader from Zhuowen. In her opinion, if Zhuowen could casually give the position of team leader to Li Ying, then he could also give it to her. She did not like being commanded by an outsider. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. However, it was not Zhuowen's voice that responded to Li Zi. Instead, it was a big slap. Li Zi's right cheek quickly swelled up. She covered her cheek and fiercely glared at Zhuowen. She said in disbelief, "You dare to hit me? You are an outsider. What qualifications do you have to hit me?" Slap. Zhuowen gave her another slap and said indifferently, "Li Zi, don't treat my modesty as cowardice. You have been targeting me since the beginning. I just didn't want to bicker with you. However, you have taken my good temper for granted time and time again. Then, I'm sorry. I won't give you any more face." Li Zi's cheeks were swollen and her eyes were bright red. She lowered her head and no longer spoke. However, her eyes were filled with resentment and hatred. This little bastard, how dare he hit me in front of everyone? Look. The Void family seems to be having internal strife. In the Void family's team, Mai Dong looked at the Void family's team and gloated. Mi Liang's gaze was gloomy and cold as he said to Mai Dong, "Mai Dong, you go. Cripple the rest of the Void family. Li Ying dared to trick me, so I'll make his entire team pay a huge price." Mai Dong chuckled and said, "Senior brother Mi Liang, I would do that even if you don't tell me to." After he finished speaking, Mai Dong leapt onto the stage. His gaze landed on the Shuming family's group, before finally locking onto Zhuowen. "You're called Zhuowen, right? I heard that you're the external aid that the Void family has invited. Now, I'd like to see just how strong you are as an external aid." 50. Mai Dong said with a cruel smile. He could tell at a glance that Zhuowen's cultivation wasn't strong. He was only at the late stage of the universe tribulation. In his opinion, this cultivation wasn't much of a threat to him. Zhuowen coldly looked at Mai Dong. Just as he was about to respond, Li Zi, who was beside him, suddenly jumped onto the stage. Li Zi spoke first. Zhuowen didn't expect Li Zi to suddenly appear, and he was stunned for a moment. On the other side of the stage, Mai Dong was stunned. He had challenged Zhuowen, but Li Zi had suddenly jumped out and challenged him with a score of 200 points. 200 points? Li Zi, you've gone mad. Li Shuo's pupils narrowed into needles as he roared furiously. Li Zi didn't even spare a glance at Li Shuo. She looked directly at Mai Dong and said, "Do you accept?" Mai Dong revealed a hesitant expression. 200 points was an enormous amount to him. Their Void family only had 210 points left. If they lost this battle, then they would only have 10 points left. Mai Dong, accept. Mi Liang spoke suddenly. Li Zi was quite famous in the Void family, but her ranking on the Void Yama Divine chart was much lower than Mai Dong. Mi Liang didn't think that Mai Dong would lose to Li Zi. Mai Dong seemed to have found his backbone after Mi Liang's reminder, and he agreed. "Lord Gold Glorious Lord, we forfeit this battle." Zhuowen suddenly looked at Gold Glorious Lord on the northern tower and said with a gloomy expression, Gold Glorious Lord shook his head and said, "Once both sides have agreed on a challenge, it can't be changed. This is the rule of the competition." Hearing this, Zhuowen's heart sank. He looked coldly at Li Zi on the stage, but he was truly furious in his heart. Li Zi was actually so shameless and willful. Just because he became the captain, she used this method to oppose him. After Gold Glorious Lord said begin, Li Zi and Mai Dong began an intense battle. Li Zi's cultivation was only at the late stage of the Cosmos Tribulation, while Mai Dong was at the peak of the Cosmos Tribulation. As soon as the battle began, Li Zi was at a disadvantage. After an hour of battle, Li Zi was suppressed by Mai Dong and fell to the ground with heavy injuries. She admitted defeat in time. Mai Dong didn't attack ruthlessly. Instead, he gracefully allowed Li Zi to walk down the stage. This battle allowed him to earn 200 points, which made Mai Dong very excited. This time, he had made a great contribution to the Void family. After Li Zi walked down the stage, she didn't even look at Zhuowen. She sat cross-legged on the side and healed herself. "Li Zi, what is the meaning of this? Are you trying to make us lose all our points by doing this?" Li Shuo walked forward and questioned loudly. Li Zi sneered, "Lose all of our points? Isn't this something that will happen sooner or later? Now that cousin Li Ying is gone, and the captain has been handed over to an outsider, our Void family has no hope of winning this competition. In any case, our Void family will be at the bottom this time, so why don't we end it earlier? We don't want to be humiliated here and mocked by others." Li Shuo was furious. He walked forward and planned to teach Li Zi a lesson, but he was stopped by Zhuowen. "Young Master Zhuo, why are you stopping me?" Li Shuo frowned. "There's no need to lower yourself to her level. Our team still has 170 points. We still have a chance," Zhuowen said. Hearing these words, Li Shuo inexplicably quieted down. He couldn't help but think of Zhuowen's extraordinary performance in the competition. Maybe Zhuowen really could create a miracle again. "I really don't know where you get your confidence from. Do you think you can do something that even cousin Li Ying couldn't do? Dream on." Li Zi once again mocked without restraint. "Do you think that I didn't hit you hard enough? If you don't think it was hard enough, I can do it again. Otherwise, shut up." Zhuowen coldly glanced at Li Zi. The killing intent in his eyes was so dense that it seemed to have substance. Li Zi's expression changed slightly. Although her cultivation was about the same as Zhuowen's, the latter was much stronger than her. If Zhuowen were to take action, she might not be his match. Li Zi snorted coldly and no longer spoke. "Haha, brother Mai Dong didn't succeed in his challenge just now, so it's my turn. I'm also very interested in the external aid that the Void family has invited." In the Void family's team, not long after Li Zi left the stage, Xu Yang leaped up. His gaze was once again locked onto Zhuowen, and his tone was full of provocation. In an instant, everyone's gaze fell on Zhuowen in the Void family's team. Everyone had been paying attention to this external aid from the very beginning. Moreover, someone had challenged him from the very beginning, but Li Ying refused. The second time, it was ruined by Li Zi. This time, he was being challenged for the third time. Everyone wanted to see if this so-called external aid would accept the challenge and how strong he was. Chapter 44-31. Under the gazes of countless pairs of eyes, Zhuowen raised his eyelids slightly and indifferently swept his gaze over the arena. Xu Yang had his hands crossed over his chest and revealed a mocking smile on his face. He grinned and said, "I accept your challenge. The score is 170. When these words came out, the entire arena fell silent. In the literary battle, the Xu family had shocked the world and obtained the most points. However, in the martial battle, they had gradually fallen behind due to their failures. In the end, they only had 170 points left. Now, Zhuowen had opened his mouth and used the remaining 170 points as a wager. This was definitely a huge gamble. Li Shuo's pupils shrank. He looked at the young man standing with his hands behind his back and his heart inexplicably calmed down. He did not know why, but he had a natural trust in Zhuowen. Moreover, The latter's ranking on the Shuyama divine list made him know that Zhuowen's strength was definitely above Shuyang's. Li Zi's eyes were filled with resentment. She mocked and ridiculed. Have you given up on yourself? You want to lose all your points, right? You are a disgrace to our Shuming family to have a person like you as the captain. Zhuowen slowly raised his right hand and stared at Li Zi with a sharp gaze. Li Zi's expression changed slightly. She could feel the coldness and killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes. Especially when she saw Zhuowen's raised hand, she could feel the faint pain from the slap on her cheek. She could not help but shut her mouth. On the stage, Xu Yang frowned and revealed a hesitant expression. He originally wanted to only bet 50 points. Although Zhuowen's aura was weaker than his, since he was invited by the Shuming family as external aid, he should have some ability. He did not dare to be careless. Xu Yang, test him. Virtual Corona suddenly said calmly. Virtual Corona spoke. Xu Yang seemed to have found his backbone. He nodded heavily and said, all right, 170 points it is. You, come up and accept your death. Zhuowen's right foot stomped on the ground and he jumped onto the stage like an arrow. His cold gaze stared indifferently at Xu Yang. Let the battle begin, Gold Glorious Lord said as he looked at the arena with bright eyes. Jinyao Lord had been paying close attention to Zhuowen's performance since the end of the Wen battle. He wanted to see how Zhuowen would fare in the Wushu battle. However, Zhuowen's challenges had been rejected from the start, so he had not had the chance to see Zhuowen's strength until now. Now, he finally had his chance. Boom. As soon as the Gold Lord finished speaking, Xu Yang immediately took out the Qian Kuan world. The aura of the peak of the Qian Kuan tribulation was pushed to the extreme. It charged forward like a giant beast. Numerous terrifying calamities surrounded Xu Yang's body like loyal guards. Lightning, flames, storms, and so on caused him to seem like a god or devil that was unstoppable. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Demonic qi began to appear around him, covering his body like demonic armor. At the same time, he also brought out his universal world. However, his universal world was covered by dense demonic qi, so it was impossible to see the exact appearance of his universal world. He could only barely hear the rumbling of the calamities inside. It's a devil cultivator. In the Shulong family's group, Xu Ju looked at Zhuowen, who was surrounded by surging demonic qi, with astonishment in his eyes. The Void aristocratic family is really so hungry that they can't be choosy. The external aid they invited is actually a devil cultivator. In the Void Lacquer family's team, am I? Ping-pong punishment. Blasphemy. Musculus decursus on the high platform of the arena. Many of the spectators were also surprised, but it did not cause too much of a commotion. However, at the front of the west side of the high platform, a young man suddenly stood up and stared at Zhuowen, who was shrouded in demonic qi. Go Yi, what happened? Next to the young man, the Saint Kang Hall master was surprised to see the young man lose his composure. In his impression, the young man had never lost his composure like this. The young man's name was Go Yi, and he was ranked 10th on the Void Yama divine list. However, he had now fallen to 11th. Father, do you know Zhuo? Go Yi asked with a gloomy face. The Saint Kang Hall master's eyes were dark and unreadable. He looked deeply at Zhuowen in the distance and said, You mean, this person is the Zhuo who defeated you? Go Yi sat down again, took a deep breath and said, Yes, it's him. I once went to the secret chamber of the Void Yama divine list to challenge him, and I was utterly defeated. And he is a devil cultivator, so I will never forget his aura. Go Yi stared at Zhuowen, who was in the arena, with some doubts in his heart. He did not understand why Zhuowen would use demonic qi to conceal his universal world. If he remembered correctly, this person's universal world was extremely extraordinary and had a total of 9 levels. You once said that this person's strength was far above yours, comparable to the top 3 on the Void Yama divine list. Now that I see it, I feel a little disappointed. The Saint Kang Hall master shook his head. He is deliberately hiding his strength. Father, when have my eyes been bad? Go Yi said in a deep voice. The Saint Kang Hall master was silent, but his eyes were looking at the figure in the arena with interest. Boom. In the arena, The two figures collided fiercely, and the calamities of both sides bloomed one after another, like gorgeous fireworks, constantly erupting in the arena with terrifying auras. Your strength is not bad. You can actually fight me to this extent at the late stage of the cosmic tribulation. Xu Yang snorted coldly and fought with all his strength. He used one divine ability after another, and the momentum was vast and mighty, emitting a divine brilliance that was difficult to look at. Zhuowen grunted, as if he was no match for Xu Yang. He was forced back by Xu Yang's divine ability, and instantly fell into a disadvantage. Xu Yang's eyes burst out with a bright light. He laughed and rushed into the demonic qi, pointing at Zhuowen in the center, wanting to completely defeat him. He knew that 170 points were about to fall into his pocket. Suddenly, a sword intent that was pitch black like ink silently flashed over and pierced into the depths of Xu Yang's forehead. Xu Yang, who was originally charging at Zhuowen, trembled and froze in midair. He held his temples with both hands and let out a shrill cry. Zhuowen took advantage of this opportunity to kick down with his right foot, landing on Xu Yang's chest. Surging demonic energy erupted, causing Xu Yang's chest to cave in and his entire body to fall to the ground. Boom! Xu Yang smashed a huge hole in the arena. His body twitched incessantly, and he spat out blood. His mind was in a mess. Zhuowen landed on the opposite side of the arena and suddenly clutched his chest, spitting out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and bloodless. This gave everyone the misconception that Zhuowen had won by a narrow margin, and that he had suffered extremely heavy injuries. Zhuowen of the Xu Ming family wins this battle, 170 point. Gold Lord looked at Zhuowen's figure, and an imperceptible smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. With Li Shuo's support, Zhuowen sat cross-legged on the side, healing his injuries with his eyes slightly closed. Li Zi's face was stiff, but she stubbornly muttered, "You won by luck, and you're injured. If someone else challenges you later, you'll definitely lose." Elder brother, Xu Yang's soul has suffered heavy injuries. Zhuowen strength is average, but her soul attacks are strange and unpredictable. "We have to be careful," Xu Ju said in a low voice after Xu Yang was carried down from the Xulong family. Virtual Corona narrowed his eyes and looked deeply at Zhuowen. No one knew what he was thinking. Next, the Xulong and Xuli families each sent a member to challenge Zhuowen. Zhuowen had won both battles by a narrow margin. Moreover, after each victory, he would spit out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and bloodless, as if his injuries had become even more serious and he would collapse at any moment. Chapter 44-32. The Void family and the Xulong family were no fools. They quickly understood that Zhuowen had been hiding his strength, deliberately winning by a narrow margin to lure them in. The two battles added another 100 points to the Void family's team. Now, the Void family had the highest score again, with 440 points. The Xulong family was the most miserable, falling from first place to last place. This Zhuowen is not simple. Don't challenge her yet. Cripple Li Zi and Li Shuo first. Xu Mianyang ordered calmly. Next, the Void family and Xulong family members no longer challenged Zhuowen. Instead, they turned their attention to Li Zi and Li Shuo. Li Zi and Li Shuo were defeated, especially Li Zi. She was already injured, and her opponent was ruthless. She was heavily injured and eliminated, and was replaced by Li Yinglong. Although Li Shuo's injuries were lighter, his strength was greatly reduced. If he continued to be challenged, there was a high chance that he would continue to lose. Thus, Li Shuo consciously withdrew from the competition. He knew that in the individual competition, he would only be a burden to Zhuowen. If he did not withdraw, it would be easy for him to lose all the points that Zhuowen had earned. Very quickly, only Zhuowen was left from the Void family, and he stood alone at the edge of the arena. Most of the Void family and Xulong family members were still there. "Sir Gold Glorious Lord, let's start the team competition. According to the rules, each team will contribute 100 points, and the final result will be based on the total score." Mi Liang raised his head to look at Gold Glorious Lord on the northern platform and asked for instructions. Although Mi Liang had been heavily injured by Li Ying, He had used the time in the individual competition to madly use healing pills and medicines, and had recovered about 70 to 80% of his injuries. The arena was in an uproar. Everyone's eyes involuntarily fell on the edge of the stage, where Zhuowen stood alone. Of the three teams, only the Void family's team had lost 4 people, leaving only Zhuowen. The Xulong family's team still had 4 people, and the Void family's team had 5 including Mi Liang, who planned to fight. At this time, Mi Liang's request for a team competition was obviously malicious. Virtual Corona looked calm. Although their team score was lagging behind, if they defeated the other 2 teams in the team competition and obtained 200 points, their team would still be in first place. Jin Yaro Jun glanced at Mi Liang, then turned to the 3 clan leaders. What do you think? I agree. The result of the individual competition is already very obvious. We have to give family head Li some face. Otherwise, if their team is eliminated and they don't even have the qualifications to enter the team competition, that would be a little embarrassing. My Haomiao said calmly. Xu Jiering also nodded seriously and said, Clan head Mai is right. As one of the 3 great clans, we have to give each other face. We can't possibly not give each other any face at all. Li Yinglong's face sank. He was furious in his heart. These 2 sanctimonious fellows were clearly trying to crush Zhuowen with numbers because the Xuming family had fewer people. Li Yinglong already knew that the Xulong family and the Void family were in cahoots. As long as the Xuming family was eliminated, these 2 families would be able to split the rich fruits of this competition. And his Xuming family would have to pay a huge price. Clan head Li, don't you think so? Mai Haomiao looked at Li Yinglong and asked hypocritically. Li Yinglong coldly snorted, but did not reply. His gaze fell on the arena, and the lone figure, as he secretly sighed in his heart. Zhuowen, you have done your best. I will remember everything you have done for the Xuming family. Our Xuming family will forfeit the team competition. Li Yinglong sighed softly. He knew very well that against Virtual Corona, Mi Liang, and the other 7 geniuses, Zhuowen alone would not be able to hold the fort. It was very likely that he would lose his life. Li Yinglong had the thought of forfeiting the competition and taking the initiative to admit defeat. Why should we forfeit? They are just a motley crew. I alone am enough. On the arena, Zhuowen suddenly spoke slowly. His voice wasn't loud, yet it was resolute and powerful, and it was powerful and resonant. Li Yinglong was stunned, and so was the entire arena. They never imagined that Zhuowen would actually be able to say such arrogant words. Ridiculous. When the team competition begins later, I hope you can still be as determined as you are now, Mi Liang said with a gloomy expression. Virtual Corona's eyes flashed with a cold light, and the others had ugly expressions. Is this Zhuowen crazy? She actually dares to challenge the other team by herself. Lizzie shook her head. She was thoroughly disappointed in Zhuowen. This external aid was indeed unreliable. Li Shuo's eyes were filled with worry. He admitted that Zhuowen was very strong, but he was not strong enough to fight against 2 teams. Clan head Li, accept the challenge. Zhuowen turned his head and looked calmly at Li Yinglong. Li Yinglong gave Zhuowen a deep look, then nodded and agreed to participate in the team competition. Since the 3 clan heads have agreed, then let the team competition begin. Jinyaro Jun's eyes flashed with an inexplicable light. He looked deeply at Zhuowen and announced the start of the competition. Virtual Corona stepped forward and landed on the arena. She stared coldly at Zhuowen as if she was looking at a dead man. Xu Ju and the other 3 prodigies of the Xulong family followed closely behind. On the other side, Mi Liang led the Xulong family team into the arena. Kid, this is the first time I've seen someone as arrogant as you. Let's see if I don't cripple you today. Mai Dong had a fiery temper. He jumped onto the arena and rushed toward Zhuowen. Mai Dong's body was extremely sturdy. He was over 2 meters tall, and his muscles were bulging like a mountain. Every step he took caused the earth to shake. Mai Dong leaped into the air. His peak Chenkuan tribulation aura erupted, and a huge Chenkuan world appeared in the air. Divine steely descending from the heavens. Mai Dong roared. His gigantic palm slammed downwards, causing numerous gigantic divine monuments to fall from the sky. Every divine stele was as vast and enormous as a mountain. They fell down in a dense manner, enveloping Zhuo Wen's tiny figure within. Let's attack together. Apart from Virtual Corona and Mi Liang, the other 6 prodigies of the Xulong and Xulong families all took action. They each summoned their Chenkuan worlds and used their strongest abilities. Behind the boundless godly stele, terrifying godly lightning, godly fire, godly beast shadows, and other divine ability anomalies rained down continuously like rain. Boom! The energy of the 7 abilities was too terrifying. The white jade arena in the center of the arena finally couldn't withstand it and completely collapsed, shattering into ruins. The energy of the 7 abilities continued to expand and spread, wanting to completely drown Zhuowen. However, the 7 abilities didn't expand for long. They suddenly shrank rapidly, as if they were being sucked in by some kind of energy. They were completely absorbed. When the 7 abilities mysteriously disappeared, everyone saw a figure standing on the ruins of the arena. The demonic chi around this figure was extremely viscous. It was like a black liquid that constantly stuck to the surroundings. It was filled with a strange aura. In the depths of the viscous demonic chi, a pair of extremely red eyes appeared. Even the viscous demonic chi couldn't hide the red light in these eyes. In the depths of the red eyes, a whirlpool-like black hole appeared. The energy of the 7 abilities was ruthlessly absorbed. Demonic eyes, a demonic ability cultivated from the 2nd level of the limitless demonic scripture. This was the first time Zhuowen used it. Too weak. Is this the power of your all-out attack? An indifferent voice sounded faintly. The pair of demonic eyes suddenly shot out a blazing red light. Then, in the depths of the eyes, an incomparably huge demonic god statue appeared. This demonic god statue was 100 feet tall. It had 8 heads and 8 arms. Its aura was terrifying. It was no weaker than an early-stage Dharma power. Roar! As soon as the demonic god statue appeared, it strode forward. Its 8 arms swung out from all directions, attacking the 7 cultivators. One of the cultivators was too slow. He was hit by one of the arms and broke at the waist. Blood splattered in mid-air. Accompanied by a scream, he fell straight to the ground. His aura rapidly weakened. Fengyun reading network. Chapter 44-33. Boom. 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 The 8-headed and 8-armed demon god statue was unstoppable. Its arms were like mountains as they blasted out from all directions, creating terrifying hurricanes. Another 3 cultivators failed to retreat in time and were hit by the huge arms. They flew out and landed heavily on the ground. When everyone's eyes fell on the 3 cultivators who landed on the ground, they all gasped. The 3 cultivators' bones were shattered and they were covered in blood. They twitched and struggled on the ground, completely losing their ability to fight. In an instant, only 3 of the 7 cultivators who had attacked Zhuowen were left. Mai Dong was one of them. He reacted the fastest and retreated early to avoid the terrifying attacks of the demon god statue. Is this the cosmic Dharma idol? This kid is not in the Great Tribulation of Universe, but the cosmic Dharma idol. Mai Dong's face was ugly as he stared at the huge demon god statue in front of him with a trace of disbelief in his eyes. But soon, he realized that the demon god statue was very different from the cosmic Dharma idol. This is not the cosmic Dharma idol, but a demon god that this kid summoned with some kind of divine ability. Its strength is probably around the early stage of the cosmic Dharma idol. All of you, back off. This demon god statue is not something that the 3 of you can deal with. Suddenly, Mi Liang, who had been watching coldly from the sidelines, rushed over and gave Mai Dong a look. Mai Dong's expression turned cold as he nodded. A cosmic Dharma idol was indeed not something that he could deal with now. In the arena, only Mi Liang and Virtual Corona could deal with it. Mai Dong quietly retreated and looked at the huge demon god statue opposite the arena with fear. He also looked at Zhuowen, who was standing on the shoulder of the demon god statue, covered in demon chi and with scarlet eyes. Shu Ju, the 2 of you back off too. Mi Liang and I can deal with the demon god statue. Xu Mianyang, who had been silent, also slowly walked forward. He looked directly at the huge demon god statue and said in an indifferent voice. Xu Ju and the other cultivator naturally didn't dare to go against Virtual Corona's words. They retreated a distance and stared at the three people in the middle of the battlefield. This should be the kid's final trump card. Summoning a cosmic early Dharma form godfiend statue at the late stage of the cosmic tribulation is indeed impressive. But that's all. Be it Mi Liang or Virtual Corona, they can easily destroy this demon deity statue. Xu Ju's eyes flickered as he analyzed the scene before him. Sigh. Looks like it's over. Li Yinglong silently looked at the three people in the arena and sighed in his heart. Zhuowen's performance was indeed beyond his expectations, but it was still not enough to fight against peerless geniuses like Mi Liang and Virtual Corona. This guy is still trying to show off. If this continues, he will definitely die in the hands of Virtual Corona and Mi Liang. Beside Li Yinglong, Li Zi sneered as she thought to herself. Li Shuo's eyes were filled with worry, and his lips were tightly pursed. If that's all you've got, do you still need to fight? Mi Liang looked straight at Zhuowen and said calmly. Break one of your arms and kneel down to surrender. I won't cripple you. Virtual Corona said coldly. Zhuowen's lips curled into a sarcastic smile. You're all too full of yourselves. Don't you know that there's always someone better than you out there? Mi Liang said disdainfully, looks like you still want to fight. Then I'll fulfill your wish. If we accidentally cripple you, don't blame us for being too ruthless. Boom. Mi Liang took a step forward, and the dark green divine power surrounding him suddenly expanded. The aura of the late stage of the cosmic Dharma form was fully displayed. In the void behind him, a strange giant Dharma form appeared. It had the head of a human and the lower body of a thick and ferocious centipede. Its 1,000 legs stepped on the air, and the sound of metal colliding resounded through the clouds. Virtual Corona put her hands behind her back, and her entire body emitted a blazing golden light. She was like a blazing sun, and her aura was so strong that it directly overshadowed Mi Liang's. In the void behind Virtual Corona, a golden-winged giant with a divine spear in his hand stepped out. The golden wings on the giant's back flapped gently, and dazzling golden feathers drifted down, embellishing the entire arena with golden light, making it hard to look at directly. As soon as Virtual Corona's cosmic Dharma form appeared, the centipede Dharma form behind Mi Liang let out a frightened cry and subconsciously distanced itself from the golden-winged giant. Mi Liang's face darkened. Virtual Corona's strength had increased again. Even his Dharma form was afraid of Virtual Corona's golden-winged giant. This made Mi Liang feel embarrassed. Humph! Go to hell! Mi Liang was the first to attack. He held the ghost-head divine blade in his hand and strode toward Zhuowen. Behind Mi Liang, the giant cosmic Dharma form followed closely. The giant centipede's body was intertwined, and it directly entangled the demon deity statue in the middle. On the other hand, Mi Liang charged towards Zhuowen. Even before he arrived, his saber chi had already swept over. The strange blade chi manifested into giant skulls and attacked Zhuowen. Boom! The demon deity statue kept resisting, but it couldn't break free from Mi Liang's cosmic Dharma form. Instead, it was tightened and the giant cosmic Dharma form collapsed and turned into countless black fragments. Zhuowen kicked with his right foot and dodged the strange blade chi around him, retreating to the edge of the arena. Senior Mi Liang is indeed worthy. Zhuan Yanxue is no match for him. Mai Dong's lips curled into a smile. Let's see where you're going to run to. Mi Liang grinned hideously. He suddenly used his legs to drop and quickly fell toward Zhuowen. The giant cosmic Dharma form swooped down and countless ink-black fog spewed out, completely enveloping the entire arena. Mi Liang is going to kill him. Zhuan Yanxue is going to be seriously injured even if she doesn't die. In the arena, everyone's eyes were fixed on this scene, and all of them were shocked. At the edge of the arena, Zhuowen raised his head slightly. His scarlet eyes became more demonic, and his body spewed out more thick devil chi. Boom! 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 In his scarlet eyes, The demon deity statues with stronger auras appeared. 9 demon deity statues stood around Zhuowen, and each of them had a vast and unparalleled aura. None of them were weaker than the advanced cosmic Dharma form. At this moment, Mi Liang's cosmic Dharma form swooped down. The moment it saw the 9 demon deity statues, its eyes were filled with human-like fear. Bang! 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 The 9 demon deity statues were cold and ruthless. Their fists, which were as large as mountains, came crashing down and hit Mi Liang's cosmic Dharma form. Roar! Mi Liang's cosmic Dharma form let out a shrill roar. Terrifying wounds burst open on its body, and dark green blood spilled between heaven and earth. It was miserable and sorrowful. The 9 demon deity statues were like perpetual motion machines. Their fists continued to hit, and each punch was more terrifying than the last. It was as if the sky was about to be torn apart. Mi Liang's cosmic Dharma form was unable to resist and was finally torn to pieces by the endless fist momentum. Mi Liang, on the other hand, was hit several times before he could react. Even though he was holding the ghost head divine saber in front of him, he was still seriously injured. His bones were broken into pieces, and the surface of the divine saber was full of cracks. Puff! Mi Liang spat out a mouthful of blood and fell heavily to the ground. He raised his head with difficulty and stared at the figure coming from below the 9 demon deity statues. His eyes were filled with horror. Chapter 44-34. You're still hiding your strength. Mi Liang endured the excruciating pain all over his body as he stared at Zhuowen, who was standing at the foot of the 9 demon god statues. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He didn't even look at Mi Liang. Instead, he stared at the virtual corona behind Mi Liang. Mi Liang, you're too weak. I hope you won't disappoint me. Zhuowen spoke slowly, but his words were arrogant and domineering. However, no one in the arena thought that Zhuowen was arrogant anymore. This was because Zhuowen had proven himself. He had the right to be arrogant. Even Mi Liang had been beaten so badly by him. Senior brother Mi Liang. Mai Dong hurried to Mi Liang's side and helped him up. He wanted to help him to a safe place. However, as soon as Mai Dong landed, a gigantic foot came down from the sky and stomped on him. Mai Dong screamed. When the gigantic foot lifted up, Mai Dong was lying on the ground. His body was covered in blood, and his mouth was still foaming with blood. Xu Ju and another cultivator looked at a demon god statue not far from Mai Dong and Mi Liang in horror. They finally experienced Zhuo Nianshue's brutality. Virtual Corona frowned slightly. He looked at Zhuowen deeply, as if he was re-evaluating Zhuowen. I've underestimated you. I can't see through your strength. However, if you're still this strong, it's still not enough for me. Virtual Corona tapped his right foot and floated up like a fairy. Finally, he landed on the shoulder of the golden-winged giant and looked down at Zhuowen. Zhuowen was held in the palm of a demon god statue. His eyes were as cold as a demon's. He said, "Then let's have a fight. Kill." Virtual Corona shouted coldly. Suddenly, huge pale arms emerged from the ground of the arena one after another, grabbing at the 9 demon statues. The golden-winged giant under the virtual corona spread its golden wings and soared into the sky. It then quickly swooped down with the golden spear in its hand and charged at the 9 demonic statues. The golden-winged giant fell, and its spear smashed into the first demonic god statue. Divine splendor circulated, and golden light burst forth. Golden flames engulfed the entire heaven and earth, never extinguishing. The first demonic god statue roared angrily and was sent flying. Dense cracks appeared on its dark and cold body. The golden-winged giant's attack succeeded, but it didn't stop. It rushed over at an even faster speed, throwing out its divine spear. The divine spear turned into a beam of golden light and disappeared in a flash. Then, it pierced through the forehead of the first demonic god statue. Brilliant golden flames engulfed the demonic god statue and burned it to ashes. The two of them were simply not on the same level. So strong. This virtual corona is so much stronger than Mi Liang. She's already at the pinnacle of the cosmic Dharma stage, And her cosmic dharma is also extraordinary. Li Yinglong's eyes narrowed. Seeing the golden-winged giant charging recklessly among the demonic god statues, his eyes were filled with worry. Bang! 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 The golden-winged giant was like a demonic god that had descended to the mortal world. It waved its divine spear and scattered divine splendor. One by one, the demonic god statues were sent flying by its spear. The bodies of the statues were also shattered. In less than 10 breaths, 8 demonic god statues were sent flying and completely shattered into dust. Only the last one was left. It stared coldly at the golden-winged giant that was quickly approaching. In the palm of the demonic god statue, Zhuowen stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes were terrifyingly calm. Clang! The golden-winged giant was getting closer and closer. Its huge divine spear, surrounded by golden divine flames, pierced straight at the palm of the demonic god statue of Zhuowen. The spear was so powerful that it seemed to be able to burn the entire space into nothingness. If it hit, the demonic god statue's palm would definitely shatter, and Zhuowen, who was in the palm, would also be severely injured. Zhuowen's eyes were like ice. Scarlet light surged out like a sea of blood. After the scarlet light, scarlet flames followed. Blood-red flames bloomed and completely enveloped Zhuowen's entire body. Demonic flame was the second theurgy of the demonic eye. It could release eternal demonic flames that used one's own demonic energy as fuel. It burned fiercely until all matter was burned to ashes. Clang! The divine spear pierced through the sky and finally blasted into the demonic god statue's palm. With a loud explosion, the demonic god statue's palm exploded. The huge demonic god statue was sent flying. Its huge body disintegrated inch by inch until it finally dissipated. Virtual Corona stood on the golden-winged giant's shoulder. He frowned slightly and stared at the tip of the divine spear. There, a figure covered in blood-red demonic flames held the tip of the spear tightly with both hands. Zhuanyan Xue? Virtual Corona murmured softly with a trace of surprise in his eyes. The divine spear of his Dharma form was extremely powerful. Even a cultivator at the peak of the Dharma form of the universe wouldn't dare to resist it with their body. However, Zhuanyanxue had overestimated herself and used her body to resist it. That was crazy. Compared to the huge divine spear, Zhuowen's figure was too small. However, his aura overwhelmed that of the golden-winged giant. His hands were like hooks, holding the tip of the spear tightly. Blood-red demonic flames raged wildly along the tip of the spear and quickly spread to the golden-winged giant's right arm. The golden divine flames on the surface of the divine spear retreated the moment they encountered the strange demonic flames. They didn't dare to stop it at all. Boom! The entire divine spear was ignited by the demonic flames. Endless blood-red flames surged and the divine spear began to melt. It evaporated into golden water vapor and dissipated in the void. What kind of flames are these? Virtual Corona's pupils constricted as he stared at the strange demonic flames. He ordered the golden-winged giant to abandon the divine spear. Unfortunately, the golden-winged giant was still one step too slow. The demonic flames were like maggots that quickly spread to the golden-winged giant's right arm and quickly swept toward the golden-winged giant's entire body. It was too fast. Roar! The golden-winged giant screamed. He waved his limbs violently, trying to extinguish the demonic flames on his body. However, it was all in vain. The demonic flames spread too fast and were getting faster and faster. In an instant, half of the golden-winged giant's body was enveloped by the demonic flames and began to melt the golden-winged giant's body. Virtual Corona's expression changed drastically. He stomped his right foot and hurriedly moved away from the golden-winged giant. The moment he landed, the golden-winged giant let out a shrill scream and was completely burned to ashes by the demonic flames. Whoosh! The terrifying sound of wind breaking swept over. Zhuowen rushed over like a blood-colored lightning. The billowing demonic flames surrounded him, making him look like a demon king returning from hell. Virtual Corona snorted coldly and stomped his foot. Countless pale arms blocked in front of Zhuowen like a tide. However, when those pale white arms approached Zhuowen, they were burned to ashes. Zhuo Wen, on the other hand, continued to press forward. No one was able to stop him. Boom! Zhuo Wen's fist smashed over and landed on Virtual Corona's face. The latter summoned a divine sword and placed it in front of him. He was very wary of the demonic flames on Zhuo Wen's body and did not dare to come into contact with it. Crack! The divine sword was sent flying by Zhuo Wen's punch. Countless demonic flames wrapped around the divine sword and turned it into ashes. Bang! 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 Zhuo Wen's fists rained down on Xu Mianyang's body one after another. The latter's face was gloomy. He summoned a divine weapon and placed it in front of him to resist Zhuo Wen's terrifying storm-like attacks. Crack! Zhuo Wen smashed the divine shield with one punch. The speed of his fist suddenly increased and smashed toward Virtual Corona's face at an unexpected moment. Virtual Corona's heart beat violently. He hurriedly raised his hand to block and collided with Zhuo Wen's fist. He let out a muffled groan as his entire body flew backwards. His right hand was tainted by the demonic flames, and it quickly began to burn. Virtual Corona made a prompt decision to cut off his right hand and used his body movement to dodge Zhuo Wen's attack. He quickly retreated out of the arena and looked at Zhuo Wen with a gloomy gaze. He said in a low voice, "I admit defeat." The entire arena was silent. One could hear a pin drop. Chapter 44-35. I admit defeat. Virtual Corona's voice wasn't loud, but it exploded like thunder in the arena. In the team round, the Xulong family had 4 people, the Xulong family had 5 people, and the Xulong family had only 1 person left. In the end, the Xulong family's team, who had been at a disadvantage, won the team round. This result was out of everyone's expectations. What about the two of you? Within the churning demonic flames, Zhuo Wen's eyes landed on Xu Ju and another person nearby. His voice was cold. Xu Ju and the other person felt a chill in their hearts, and they quickly admitted defeat. Even Virtual Corona wasn't a match for this person, so how could the two of them fight? Zhuo Wen landed on the ground. The demonic flames dissipated, and his face was slightly pale. Demonic flames burned demonic energy as fuel, and the consumption and side effects were not small. Even Zhuo Wen couldn't use them for long periods of time. The Xulong family wins the team round. Overall, the winner is the Xulong family. The Xulong and Xulong families are second and third respectively. Gold Glorious Lord looked deeply at Zhuo Wen, and the corners of his mouth curled up as he announced the final result. Win! Win! Are you kidding me? In the Eastern Tower, Li Yinglong's mouth was slightly agape, and he was completely dumbfounded. When Gold Glorious Lord announced the final result, he finally came back to his senses. Excitement surged in his heart, and his entire body trembled. XDW8 Li Yinglong jumped up and charged toward Zhuo Wen in the center of the arena. He was overjoyed, and he wanted to thank Zhuo Wen properly. If it weren't for him, how could the Xulong family have won the final competition? Young Master Zhuo is really strong, so this is his true strength. No wonder he was so confident from the start. Li Shuo muttered to himself. He looked at Zhuo Wen with eyes full of admiration and gratitude. Li Zi was dumbfounded. She lowered her head in shame when she thought of how she acted in a fit of pique in the individual round. She had been wrong all this time, and she had pushed all the blame onto Zhuanyenshui. At this moment, Li Zi really wanted to find a hole to hide in. On the other hand, Xu Jiering and Mi Haomiao of the Xulong family and Xulong family had ugly expressions on their faces. This final result was simply too difficult for them to accept. However, this was the truth that had happened before their eyes. Patriarch, I've disappointed you. Virtual Corona brought Xu Ju and the others back to the southern tower. He knelt on one knee in front of Xu Jiering and said in a low voice. Xu Jiering rubbed the back of her hand and looked straight ahead with her cold eyes. Xu Jiering did not speak. Virtual Corona, Xu Ju, and the others did not even dare to breathe loudly. It's not your fault. Zhuanyenshui is too good at hiding. Although his cultivation is not strong, his strength and trump cards are shocking. If my guess is correct, this kid's strength is probably comparable to Chi's. It's not unjust that you lost to him. Xu Jiering spoke slowly, but what she said shocked Virtual Corona and the others. Qi, number 1 on the Void Yama divine list, was the most outstanding son of the Void Yama king. In the future, he would be the most powerful successor of the King of Hell. Even someone as arrogant as Virtual Corona did not dare to compete with Qi. The latter was too powerful. However, Xu Jiering actually compared Xuanyenshui to Qi. This was hard for Virtual Corona to accept. Even if Xuanyenshui was stronger than her, there was still a large gap between her and Qi. Father, are you really going to take out 30 divine void mountain springs? Virtual Corona suddenly asked. Although the Xulong family was rich, 30 divine void mountain springs were still a huge loss to the Xulong family. Xu Jiering's expression froze, then turned gloomy. With the King of Hell's gold glorious lord as a witness, are you going to go back on your word? Virtual Corona clenched her fists but remained silent. We naturally have to hand over 30 divine void mountain springs. However, it won't be that easy for the Xulong family to get them. After Xu Jiering finished speaking, she glanced at Mi Haomiao of the Xulong family. Their eyes met and twinkled. Haha. Xuanyenshui, I really underestimated you. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. In the end, you won the final victory for the Xulong family. Li Yinglong patted Zhuowen's shoulder with a smile on his face. His tone was warm and grateful. Zhuowen said indifferently, Family head Li, you're too polite. I was also fighting for myself. After all, I have 30% of the divine void mountain springs. If I didn't do my best, then all my efforts would have been in vain. Li Yinglong smiled embarrassedly and continued, even so, I still have to thank you on behalf of the Xulong family. Without you, our Xulong family would have suffered a great loss. All right. The grand competition has already ended. 3 patriarchs, remember to divide the divine void mountain spring among yourselves. If there is anything unfair, you can report it to the Void Hell Royal Court. The Void Hell Royal Court will handle it impartially and will not be biased. Gold Lord spoke again. He glanced at the 3 family heads before his gaze landed on Zhuowen. He smiled and said, Xuanyenshui, you're not bad. A talent like you deserves better development. If you're willing, you can come to the King of Hell to find me. I'll personally receive you and introduce you to the great Xulong King of Hell. Zhuowen cupped his hands at Gold Lord and said, Thank you for your kindness, Gold Lord. I still need to think about this. Once I've made up my mind, I'll go to the King of Hell to find you. Gold Lord nodded in satisfaction. He then steered the divine ship and left the arena. Family Head Li, these are the permission tokens for my Xulong family's 30 divine void mountain springs. They'll belong to your Xulong family in the future. These are the permission tokens for the Xulong family's 30 divine void mountain springs. After Gold Lord left, Xu Jiering and Mi Haomiao readily handed over their permission tokens to Li Yinglong. Then, the 2 families didn't stay for a moment longer. They boarded the divine ship and quickly left. Li Yinglong took the 2 tokens with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Xu Jiering and Mi Haomiao had handed over their permission tokens too readily. After all, 30 divine void mountain springs wasn't a small number. Damn it, it's all because of the divine void mountain springs at the foot of the mountain. Li Yinglong looked at the location label on the token in his hand and his expression changed greatly. The divine void mountain covered a vast area. From the foot of the mountain to the peak, there were natural divine void mountain springs. Every divine void mountain spring was filled with energy and easy to absorb. It was a holy land for many cultivators to cultivate. However, not all divine void mountain springs were filled with energy. It depended on the location. The higher up the divine void mountain, the better the location and the more abundant the energy. And the divine void mountain spring at the peak had the best divine void spring water. Its cultivation effects were also the best. On the other hand, the foot of the mountain was the worst divine void mountain spring. And what Xu Jiering and Mi Haomiao gave to Li Yinglong was the worst divine void mountain spring at the foot of the mountain. No wonder the 2 family heads left in a hurry after handing over their tokens. Chapter 44-36 Void family, Tianluan pavilion, Zhuowen sat cross-legged, the acupoints all over his body absorbing the surrounding dense chaos energy. The chaos energy of a super realm was several times denser than that of a high realm, and the Void family was one of the most powerful families in the Void Yama realm. As one of the most powerful forces, the chaos energy in their mansion was much denser than in other places. In Tianluan Pavilion, Zhuowen's cultivation speed was rather fast, several times faster than in the Purple Jade realm. Although the chaos energy here is dense, it's still not enough for me. Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes and shook his head. Although his cultivation was only at the late stage of the universe tribulation, the energy required to break through to the peak of the universe tribulation was too great. Big. If he meditated like this, it would take at least a few decades before he could successfully break through. It's been 3 days since the competition. The Void family should have already shared the divine Void Spring with the Void Long family and the Void Qi family. The handover procedures should have been completed. Zhuowen stood up. After returning from the competition, Zhuowen had become the hero of the Void family. Many of the Void family's the juniors all looked at him with burning gazes. He was also arranged to stay in one of the most luxurious pavilions of the Void family, Tianluan Pavilion. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Zhuowen opened the door and found a man and a woman outside. Li Shuo, Li Hong, what's the matter? Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Young Master Zhuo, the Patriarch has already completed the procedures. He said that if you are free, you can follow him to the Divine Void Mountain to pick out the Divine Void Spring. I choose the Divine Void Mountain Spring. Li Hong smiled sweetly, her beautiful eyes constantly sizing up Zhuowen, her gaze blazing. Also, the King of Hell's reward has arrived. It is said that the King of Hell's reward this time is extremely generous. It is a 9 extreme law pattern pill. This pill can greatly increase the chances of advancing to the cosmic aspect. Even our Void family, this kind of divine pill is extremely rare. Li Shuo rubbed his hands and said excitedly. The 9 extreme law pattern pill could be said to be as precious as his life to him. It was all thanks to Zhuowen that he was able to obtain such a reward. Therefore, he was filled with gratitude towards Zhuowen. All right, I'm free now. Take me to see the Patriarch. Zhuowen nodded. Next, the 3 of them walked towards the reception hall. Along the way, many disciples of the Void Realm aristocratic family were curiously sizing up Zhuowen. Zhuowen could see through their eyes. A look of awe appeared on his face. He's that Xuanyanxue, young Master Zhuo. He was the one who turned the tide in the large competition and won for our Xueshan family. The final victory. Wow. Young Master Zhuo is so handsome. It's a pity that I wasn't in the clan on the day of the competition. I've seen young Master Zhuo's splendor. The disciples of the illusionary family that passed by were whispering to each other. Many young female cultivators were even casting flirtatious glances at him. On the other hand, Zhuowen's expression remained the same, showing neither sorrow nor joy. When Zhuowen stepped into the reception hall, Li Yinglong had already stood up and personally welcomed him with a warm smile on his face. At the same time, Zhuowen also noticed that in the hall, other than Li Yinglong, there were also Li Ying and Li Zi. Beside Li Yinglong was a middle-aged man with a fat head and big ears. Young Master Zhuo, this is the emissary of the King of Hell. He is here to deliver the rewards for the Wen battle to you and Li Shuo. Li Yinglong pointed at the middle-aged man beside him and introduced him to Zhuowen with a smile. The emissary smiled. He sized up Zhuowen and nodded. Young Master Zhuo is so young, yet he is able to be both civil and martial. It's truly rare. In this Wen battle, young Master Zhuo's performance was outstanding. Even our king praised him after watching the recording. Young Master Zhuo, an outstanding talent like you should actually come to the royal court of Shuyama to develop. With the resources and foundation of the royal court, you can with the royal court's power, you can become the second Shao Qi. I hope young Master Zhuo can give me face. Zhuowen's expression was calm. He was not moved by the emissary's words. He cupped his hands and said, I will think about it. The emissary narrowed his eyes. He was slightly dissatisfied with Zhuowen's attitude, but he did not say anything. Instead, he handed 2 brocade boxes to Zhuowen. Zhuowen. This is the 9 extreme aspect pattern pill. It's of superior quality. Young Master Zhuo and young Master Li Shuo are both at the great calamity of universe. The divine pill is the most useful to you. That's why our king chose this prize. The emissary said indifferently. Zhuowen and Li Shuo took the brocade boxes. After thanking the emissary hurriedly left. After the emissary left, Li Yinglong suddenly waved his sleeve and said to Li Zi and Li Ying behind him, "The two of you. Why aren't you apologizing to young Master Zhuo?" Li Ying's face was pale. His eyes flickered as he bowed deeply to Zhuowen and said, "Young Master Zhuo, I was blinded by jealousy. Li Ying was blinded by jealousy and treated you badly in the competition. I hope you can forgive him." Li Zi directly knelt on the ground and said in shame, "Young Master Zhuo, Li Zi was too willful and did not care about the overall situation. If you could forgive me." Zhuowen looked at the two of them indifferently, and then looked at Li Yinglong. He knew that Li Yinglong was expressing his attitude and drawing the relationship between the two of them closer. Li Yinglong was a smart person. In this grand competition, he could see Zhuowen's potential and strength. He knew that the latter would definitely become someone in the future. He was a true powerhouse. Now that he had a good relationship with Zhuowen, it would be of great benefit to him and the Shuming family. "It's fine. It's just a small matter. Please rise," Zhuowen said calmly. Young Master Zhuo is indeed magnanimous and does not bother about trifles. "Why haven't you thanked young Master Zhuo?" Li Yinglong let out a sigh of relief and hurriedly said to Li Ying and Li Zi. Li Ying and Li Zi thanked Zhuowen and stood silently to the side. "Family head Li, I heard that you've already completed the transfer procedures for the Divine Void Mountain Spring. Now, I can go to the Divine Void Mountain to pick one. Have you chosen my Divine Void Mountain Spring?" Zhuowen asked about the purpose of his visit this time. When the Divine Void Mountain Spring was mentioned, a smile appeared on Li Yinglong's face. Although the Shulong family and the Shulong family had the worst positions, the Divine Void Mountain Spring would be handed over to him. However, the Divine Void Mountain Spring was blessed by the heavens. Even the worst location was much more precious than ordinary treasured lands. In this grand competition, we won a total of 60 Divine Void Mountain Springs. According to the previous agreement, 30% of them are yours. There are only 18 of them. Now, I'll take you to see. You can choose any 18. You can cultivate these 18 on your own, or you can open them or rent them out. You can decide whether to open it to the public or rent it out, Li Yinglong said with a smile. Li Shuo and Li Hong's faces were filled with envy. 18 Divine Void Mountain Springs. This was a huge fortune. In Voidyang Divine City, if one possessed a Divine Void Mountain Spring, they would be a top-notch wealthy person. Now, Zhuowen had 18. With 18 of them, their wealth and foundation surpassed 70% of the forces in Voidyang Divine City. These 18 Divine Void Mountain Springs will be managed by your Void family. If I don't use the Divine Void Mountain Springs, you can use them at will. If I want to use them, no one can disturb me, Zhuowen said. It was obviously impossible for him to manage 18 Divine Void Mountain Springs alone. The only way was to hand them over to the Void family to manage, and let the Void family have a certain amount of authority. This was a win-win situation. It was a win-win strategy, and also Zhuowen's best choice at the moment. Li Yinglong's smile became even more brilliant. Zhuowen's suggestion was clearly an advantage for their Void family. In his heart, Zhuowen's favorable impression of him multiplied. == Chapter 4437. The Divine Void Mountain was located about 5 billion miles north of the Void Hell Divine City. Looking from afar, the Divine Void Mountain towered into the clouds, its peak unfathomable. A divine ship flew out of Shuyan City and headed for the Divine Void Mountain. Is that the Divine Void Mountain? On the deck, Zhuowen stood at the bow of the ship. His gaze fell in front of him, where a huge mountain stood. Translucent divine splendor flowed around this enormous mountain. Pillars of light shot up into the sky from various parts of the mountain. Moreover, These light pillars were quite regular. The higher one went, the more intense the light pillars were. Yes, the Divine Void Mountain is famous because of the Divine Void Spring. Young Master Zhuo, you must have seen the pillars of light shooting up into the sky from the mountain, right? Li Yinglong walked slowly to Zhuowen's side and said with a smile. Could those light pillars be formed from the energy overflowing from the Divine Void Mountain Spring? Zhuowen's eyes twinkled as he guessed. Li Yinglong laughed and said, Sir Zhuo is truly intelligent. Your guess is correct. Those pillars of light are indeed the energy overflowing from the Divine Void Mountain Spring. Just as you can see, the closer we get to the peak, the more intense the pillar of light is. This also means that the quality of the Divine Void Mountain Spring is higher. Zhuowen was shocked. This Divine Void Mountain Spring was truly extraordinary. Just the overflowing energy was able to form a pillar of light that soared into the heavens. It was truly extraordinary. Soon, the divine warship arrived at the periphery of the Divine Void Mountain. Patriarch, Sir Zhuo, we have arrived at the Divine Void City Square. Li Shuo stopped the ship and said to Zhuowen and Li Yinglong. It was only then that Zhuowen discovered that beneath the divine warship, there was an extremely large gathering of cultivators. This was the outer perimeter of the Divine Void Mountain. Many cultivators had built temporary palaces here. Magnificent palaces rose from the ground and were arranged in picturesque disorder below. Although the order was disorderly, it was still a unique scene. Many cultivators were lining up all kinds of items in front of the temporary palaces. Each item was clearly marked with a price. Rather than calling it a market, Zhuowen felt that it was more like a small city. The divine ship stopped in front of a magnificent palace. Immediately, several cultivators came forward to welcome them. Welcome, Patriarch. The one leading the group of cultivators was a hunchbacked old man. He led everyone in a meticulous bow. Li Yinglong looked at the hunchbacked old man and faintly smiled. Old Jew, the divine void spring that the Void Dragon family and Void Chi family lost to us, have you sent people to take over? The hunchbacked old man hurriedly said, Don't worry, Patriarch. Once you give the order, this old man will send someone to take over. The people from the two aristocratic families were also very straightforward and didn't delay. Li Yinglong's lips twitched. The divine void mountain springs that the two great aristocratic families gave them were of the worst quality, so they naturally gave it to them without any hesitation. Before we leave, let me introduce young Master Zhuo to all of you. It was all thanks to him that our Void Wall clan was able to obtain the final victory in the competition. Li Yinglong pointed at Zhuowen and introduced him to the hunchbacked old man and the others. Is it really young Master Zhuo Nianxue? The hunchbacked old man and the others suddenly became excited. They all knelt on the ground, bowing 3 times and kowtowing 9 times to Zhuowen. Everyone, please get up quickly. This Zhuo is unable to accept such a great gift. Zhuowen hurriedly said. Young Master Zhuo, you can accept it. You don't know, but for the past 100 years, our Void Wall clan has been defeated time and time again in the competition. We watched as the divine Void Mountain Springs were lost time and time again. Our Void Wall clan was mocked and humiliated by the other two aristocratic families, but we couldn't refute them. This time, because of you, we can finally hold our heads high. Now, outside the divine Void Mountain, when the two aristocratic families see us, they won't dare to mock us anymore. The hunchbacked old man laughed heartily, looking at Zhuowen with gratitude in his eyes. All right. Young Master Zhuo came this time to choose his divine Void Mountain Spring. Old Jew, lead the way. Li Yinglong smiled. The hunchbacked old man hurriedly got up and enthusiastically led Zhuowen towards the divine Void Mountain. The divine Void Mountain Springs that the Void Wall clan and Void Wall clan took out were at the foot of the mountain, in the southwest and northeast directions respectively. The hunchbacked old man first led Zhuowen to the southwest area. He saw that in the southwest area, under a smooth cliff, there was an extremely large open space. There were 30 springs scattered around the open space. The mouth of each spring was irregularly shaped. The spring water inside was milky white, surging like boiling water. The dense energy gushed out like a tidal wave. In this area, Zhuowen could clearly feel that there was a powerful grand array. Patriarch, Old Jew, Outside the Grand Array, a cultivator army was stationed. When they saw Li Yinglong and the others arrive, they hurriedly bowed respectfully. After old Zhu opened the array core, Zhuowen, Li Yinglong, and the others stepped inside. Young Master Zhuo, you can choose the one you are most satisfied with. If not, there are still 30 divine void mountain springs in the northeast area for you to choose from, Li Yinglong generously said. Zhuowen noticed that this area was extremely vast. Every spring was separated by a great distance, and there were also restrictions around each spring. Zhuowen carefully sensed and discovered that the energy of the springs in this area was actually about the same. I'll choose these 18. Zhuowen casually chose 18 divine void mountain springs. In his opinion, the divine void mountain springs at the foot of the mountain were all about the same, so there was no need to waste time choosing. After Zhuowen made his choice, old Zhu took out 18 corresponding jade tokens and handed them to Zhuowen, saying, Young Master Zhuo, these are the restriction jade tokens for the divine void mountain springs that you have chosen. By relying on these jade tokens, you can smoothly enter the corresponding spring without suffering any attacks from the restrictions. Zhuowen nodded. He took out a jade token and handed it to Li Shuo and Li Hong, saying, The reason I was able to participate in this grand competition is because of the efforts of the two of you. Zhuowen is not an ungrateful person. This divine void mountain spring is a gift to the two of you. You can use it as you wish. Li Shuo and Li Hong were stunned. Their heartbeats quickened. They never imagined that Zhuowen would so generously gift them a divine void mountain spring. Why haven't you thanked young Master Zhuo yet? Li Yinglong solemnly shouted. Li Shuo and Li Hong regained their senses and hurriedly bowed their heads in thanks to Zhuowen. Their faces were brimming with excitement. After the divine void mountain springs were distributed, Li Yinglong, old Zhu, and the others left. As for Zhuowen, he stayed behind. The reason he helped the Void family was to borrow the divine void mountain spring to cultivate. Now that the divine void mountain spring was right in front of him, it was naturally impossible for him not to use it. I hope this divine void mountain spring won't disappoint me and can help me break through again. Zhuowen took a deep breath. He took out a jade token and jumped into the nearest divine void mountain spring. As expected of the divine void mountain spring, what rich energy. As Zhuowen entered the mountain spring, he discovered that the entire spring water was formed from the liquefied energy of primal chaos. He merely took a light breath, and rich chaos energy flowed through his trachea and merged with his 8 extraordinary meridians. Zhuowen sat cross-legged in the spring water and began to madly absorb the energy of the mountain spring. His aura rapidly rose. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, M. Chapter 4438. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Within the crystal-clear spring water, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were brimming with vigor, and the aura on his body had reached a terrifying level. After half a month, I finally broke through the peak of the universe tribulation. Zhuowen slowly stood up, and the bones in his body emitted a thunderous sound, as if there were countless lightning flashing in his body. The spring water energy in this divine void mountain spring is almost dry. Zhuowen lowered his head to look at the bottom of the spring, and found that the spring water had turned transparent, and was no longer milky white. The energy in the spring water was also exceptionally diluted. In half a month, this was already the 7th divine void mountain spring that had dried up. The amount of energy required for Zhuowen's cultivation was simply too great. Logically speaking, a divine void mountain spring was enough to allow a late-stage universe tribulation cultivator to cultivate to the cosmic aspect. However, Zhuowen was different. He had only broken through the peak of the universe tribulation, and he had already used up 7 divine void mountain springs. It was truly terrifying. Of course, the divine void mountain spring was not completely dry, but only temporarily. The divine void mountain spring relied on the divine void mountain. As long as the divine void mountain did not fall, the divine void mountain spring would be able to continuously produce spring water with abundant energy. However, the divine void mountain spring's production was not high. Zhuowen would need thousands of years to completely recover the spring water that he had absorbed. There are still 10 left. Even if I absorb all of them, I might not be able to break through to the cosmic aspect. Zhuowen looked at the other 10 divine void mountain springs that belonged to him, and finally dispelled the idea of continuing to absorb and cultivate. The red dragon's efficiency is not as fast as I thought. There is still no news of Lung Enyang. Zhuowen jumped out of the spring water and took out the communication jade. There was no news of Lung Enyang, and he could not hide the disappointment in his eyes. He had originally planned to follow the experts of the Void family to the Zixuan realm after finding Moyan Wushang, and help the Zixuan clan conquer other higher realms. Now, there was still no news of Moyan Wushang. He naturally did not want to leave the Void Yama realm so early. Let's go to the 7 emotions and 6 desires Saint Lord's Starlight World again. If I can successfully break the restriction on the surface of the 7 treasures pagoda and master the Starlight World of the 7 emotions 6 desires Saint Lord, perhaps I can use the perception of the colored mud to find Wu Shang's specific whereabout. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He looked at the platinum pentagram mark on his palm and immersed his consciousness into the mark. All of a sudden, Zhuowen sensed a terrifying vortex sweeping towards him from the side. Then, he felt the world spinning and he arrived at a world filled with stars. Brat, you're here again. It's only been a short while and you've already wasted your second chance. You should know that you only have 3 chances. You're already at the peak of the cosmic tribulation? As soon as Zhuowen entered the Starlight World, a clear and surprised voice came from a starlight not far away. Within this ball of starlight, a pagoda floated. The pagoda was sparkling and translucent, as if it was made of glass. This pagoda had a total of 7 floors. Each floor was of a different color and shone with a rainbow light. At the top of the pagoda, a little girl wearing a colorful dress sat on the top of the pagoda. She crossed her legs and looked at Zhuowen in surprise. If she remembered correctly, when Zhuowen entered the Starlight World last time, his cultivation was only at the ancient star transformation. How long had it been? This brat had actually broken through again. Looking at his aura, he was not far from the cosmic manifestation. In particular, Zhuowen's aura was far beyond the ordinary cosmic manifestation, which shocked the little girl. Colored mud. Long time no see. Zhuowen smiled and greeted the little girl. In the outside world, Xiao Hei quickly rushed out and struck a pose in front of colored mud that she thought was very handsome. She raised her eyebrows and said, "Little girl, I haven't seen your brother Black for a long time. Do you miss me?" The veins on colored mud's forehead bulged. She waved her small hand and streaks of colorful thunder flashed out and landed accurately on Xiao Hei. F***CK. You're electrocuting me. Little sister colored mud, no matter how much you miss me, you don't have to be so enthusiastic. Xiao Hei cried out strangely as she dodged the colorful thunder. Miss your head. Go as far as you can. Otherwise, I'll hack you to death. As colored mud spoke, she took out a colorful axe from the pagoda. The colorful axe expanded in the wind and instantly became 1,000 feet long as it slashed at Xiao Hei. F***CK. You're ruthless. Xiao Hei cried out strangely and hurriedly went into the outside world, not daring to come out again. You're fast to escape. Colored mud put her hands on her waist. The huge colorful axe turned into a stream of light and returned to the pagoda. Brat, are you trying to open the starlight on the surface of the 7 ultimate pagoda? Colored mud sized up Zhuowen and asked. Yes. But I need to cultivate here before preparing to try. Zhuowen said. Colored mud shrugged and said, up to you. Even if your cultivation is much stronger than the first time, you still can't open the starlight on the surface of the 7 ultimate pagoda. Your cultivation is at least at the peak of the cosmic transformation stage. Maybe there's still hope of success. Zhuowen smiled and said, anyway, there's still one more chance. It won't hurt to try. Colored mud rolled her eyes and immediately gritted her teeth as she realized that Zhuowen had summoned many people from the outside world. Why is this guy still so shameless to bring people in to cultivate? Zhuowen had summoned Shan Lingyun, Duan Jipeng, and Shapotian. The Starlight World was also very beneficial to their cultivation. Naturally, he would share the benefits. As for Xiao Hei, he was a little traumatized by colored mud because of his blabbering earlier. When Zhuowen summoned him, he would rather die than come out. Shan Lingyun, Duan Jipeng, and the rest were already experienced. Once they entered the starlight world, they immediately sat down cross-legged to cultivate. Zhuowen sat cross-legged beside the 7 ultimate pagoda and started to cultivate his divine soul and divine power at the same time. The special energy in the 7 emotions and 6 desires Saint Lord was very beneficial to the divine soul. At the same time, it could also improve his cultivation. In addition, the time here was 1,600 times faster than the outside world. Therefore, Zhuowen did not feel much urgency to cultivate. He planned to cultivate slowly. After he had consolidated and perfected his cultivation in the peak of the Qian Kuan world, he would strive for the cosmic transformation stage. 100 years passed in the blink of an eye during cultivation. Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. His eyes emitted a strange purple-gold color. The space in front of him actually collapsed partially because of his gaze. This guy has a unique talent for cultivating his divine soul. In just 100 years, he actually broke through from the middle of the cosmic transformation stage to the early stage of the inverse ancient starlight stage. Moreover, his cultivation is only half a step away from the cosmic transformation stage. As long as he has enough energy to absorb in a short period of time, he will be able to enter the cosmic transformation stage smoothly. Colored mud sat on the pagoda. His sparkling eyes stared straight at Zhuowen as he thought to himself. After 100 years of cultivation, I am finally one step closer to the cosmic transformation stage. Now, the energy of the 10 divine void mountain springs is enough for me to break through. Zhuowen's eyes glowed. He was in an extremely good mood. The improvement of his divine soul was even greater than his cultivation. He had leaped to the early stage of the inverse ancient starlight stage. If he used his divine soul sword essence, he could kill any cultivator below the inverse ancient starlight stage. Now, I want to try and see if I can shake the surface of the 7 ultimate pagoda. Zhuowen stood up. He walked towards the starlight where the 7 ultimate pagoda was, his eyes flashing purple gold. Chapter 4439. Under the starlight, Caini looked at Zhuo who was striding over with a calm expression. Kid, don't waste your energy. The 7 ultimate pagoda's starlight power is the strongest in this world. It was set up by Master himself. You can't break it with your current strength. Caini crossed her arms at her waist and snorted. Zhuowen turned a deaf ear to her. He stopped in front of the starlight and his aura suddenly erupted. In the void behind him, a huge 9-layered Qian Kuan world appeared, and a vast aura surged down like a wave. Hey! This guy's Qian Kuan world actually has 9 layers. Caini's eyes widened as she stared at the huge world behind Zhuowen. This was the first time she had seen such a strange Qian Kuan world. Zhuowen's eyes were cold as he pressed down with his right hand. The first 7 layers of the 9-layered Qian Kuan world behind him instantly opened. Fire, ice, blood lightning, black lightning, silver white and fiery red corrosive flood, countless divine mountains, and 9 huge dragons formed by black winds surged out. The moment the 7th layer opened, Zhuowen's right hand did not stop as he opened the 8th and 9th layers. After he reached the peak of the Qian Kuan Great Tribulation, he had the ability to open all 9 layers of the Qian Kuan world. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 8th layer emitted endless golden light. Within the golden light were huge dragons with golden wings on their backs. Every single one of these golden-winged dragons possessed auras that were far, far more powerful than the black dragons on the 7th floor. Furthermore, 36 of them had appeared at once. When the 9th layer opened, countless black quicksand floated out. At the end of the black sand, there was a strange huge black eye. The calamities of the 8th and 9th layers were much more terrifying than the first 7 layers, especially the huge black eye. Even Zhuowen, who was the owner, felt a chill run down his spine when he met Black Pupil's gaze. After releasing the calamities of the 9th layer, Zhuowen took a deep breath and immediately switched to the demonic Dai form. Billowing devil chi spread out rapidly, enveloping Zhuowen and the Chenkuan world behind him. In an instant, the tribulation power released by the 9 layers of the universe world underwent a qualitative change. Colored Mud, who was originally nonchalant, had a slightly solemn expression on her face. The strength of Zhuowen's methods had somewhat exceeded her expectations. Boom! Boom! Under Mo Rant's control, the tribulations quickly exploded, streaking across the sky and heavily bombarding the starlight on the surface of the 7 Treasures Pagoda. Intense explosions resounded continuously as the 7 Ultimate Pagoda was completely submerged by the calamity waves. In particular, the 36 golden-winged dragons whistled through the sky and swept over in the blink of an eye. Countless golden radiance sprinkled down, and the surrounding space exploded to the point of collapse and distortion, causing extremely tragic energy fluctuations. The huge black pupil floated leisurely in the void. The strange pupil suddenly split into a red line as it stared in the direction of the colored mud. Within 100 feet of the 7 Ultimate Pagoda, the space collapsed as countless blood seas appeared out of thin air, raging and churning as they constantly pressed and eroded. The black pupil's attack was strange and powerful, and impossible to guard against. Not bad. Although your cultivation is not high, your strength is really strong. You actually caused such a strong disturbance in the starlight. You really surprised me. Colored Mud sat upright on the 7 Ultimate Pagoda as dense ripples formed on the surface of the surrounding starlight. Obviously, the attack just now had a significant impact on the starlight surrounding the 7 Ultimate Pagoda. Zhuowen was not discouraged. He took out the Taiyu Sacred Sword and used one of his self-created superpowers in the demonic Dai form. Heaven and Earth, one line of heaven, sword shaking the 9 heavens. Life in the morning, death in the evening. After the 3 superpowers were used, Zhuowen's right hand pointed at his glabella with 2 fingers. A sharp purple-gold light erupted from his glabella, and then a terrifying purple-gold soul sword essence burst out. After using 81 soul sword essences, Zhuowen's face was pale and bloodless, and his aura became somewhat weak. But his eyes were getting brighter and brighter, and his fighting spirit was soaring. Demonic Eye. His eyes suddenly burst out with a scarlet light, and the demonic god statues descended from the sky, with 8 heads and 8 arms, wantonly attacking. Demonic Flame. After the demonic god statues appeared, Zhuowen's eyes suddenly burst out with scarlet flames, and the rolling red flames swept across the sky, turning into a huge fire dragon that rushed toward the 7 Ultimate Pagoda. Boom! Boom! The attack this time was more intense than the previous one. Colored Mud was no longer calm. She stood at the top of the pagoda and looked nervously at Zhuowen's second wave of attack. 3 superpowers, 81 soul sword essences, the demonic god statues, and the demonic flame came one after another. The starlight surrounding the 7 Ultimate Pagoda was torn apart layer by layer, and it became completely dim. But the starlight was still not destroyed. Colored Mud heaved a sigh of relief. She looked at Zhuowen again, and there was no more ridicule and contempt in her eyes. I've completely underestimated you. You're really strong. If your cultivation had reached the cosmic manifestation, you might have been able to break the starlight on the surface of the 7 Ultimate Pagoda. But now, you're still a little short. Colored Mud shook her head, and there was a trace of regret in her eyes. She knew very well that if Zhuowen's attack was stronger, the starlight would really be broken. Not bad. Zhuowen's expression was calm. He suddenly flipped his right hand, and a golden seal appeared in his palm. An ancient and majestic aura came crushing down, and it filled the entire starry world. At this moment, Colored Mud trembled, and she instinctively felt fear. It was the absolute deterrence of a superior to a subordinate. What level is this divine weapon? Colored Mud stared at the seal in Zhuowen's hand, and her clear voice was filled with extreme fear. Zhuowen was speechless, but his face was getting paler, and blood was flowing out of his mouth. In order to break the seal of the 7 Ultimate Pagoda, Zhuowen used his final trump card, the Grand Imperial Seal. However, the Grand Imperial Seal consumed too much divine power. Even though Zhuowen was much stronger than before, it still required too much divine power. Using the Grand Imperial Seal was still very stressful. Fart. Zhuoan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and he threw the Grand Imperial Seal away. The Grand Imperial Seal emitted a blazing golden light, and it turned into a ray of light that slammed into the 7 ultimate pagoda. The entire starry world let out an earth-shattering explosion. The golden light of the Grand Imperial Seal exploded, and then there was an extremely terrifying vibration. Colored mud screamed, and then she was completely drowned by the golden light. When the golden light dissipated, the Grand Imperial Seal returned to Zhuoan's side. Zhuoan put away the Grand Imperial Seal, and his eyes looked forward. The starlight on the surface of the 7 ultimate pagoda had completely collapsed, and the 7 ultimate pagoda was thrown thousands of feet away. XDW8 colored mud sat on the top of the pagoda, and her beautiful rainbow-colored dress became wrinkled. She stared blankly at Zhuoan in front of her, and then burst into tears. Chapter 4440. Bad guy, bad guy. How could you do this to me? You hurt me. It's so painful, sob sob sob. Caini bawled her heart out and became more and more sorrowful. Zhuoan panted heavily and looked at the crying Caini, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He did not expect Caini's reaction to be so big. However, his desire for the Grand Emperor's seal was getting stronger. The 7 Treasures Pagoda was already an extremely powerful divine artifact. The Grand Emperor's seal was obviously more powerful than the 7 Treasures Pagoda. Seeing that Caini's cries were getting louder, Zhuoan quickly went forward to comfort the little girl. However, just as Zhuoan reached Caini, she suddenly stopped crying and smiled. Then, the 7 Treasures Pagoda under her slowly flew up and landed in Zhuoan's hand. Hee. Zhuoan, congratulations. You already have me completely now. From now on, you're my master. Caini stood at the top of the pagoda and patted her skirt. The rainbow dress immediately regained its luster and she smiled innocently at Zhuoan. Zhuoan rolled his eyes. This Caini changed her face too quickly. She was just bawling a moment ago and now she was smiling mischievously. However, Caini was right. After breaking the seal on the surface of the 7 Treasures Pagoda and obtaining it, he could clearly feel that he had an inexplicable connection with the vast starlight world. It was as if he could control the entire starlight world and use anything in this world at will. Thank you, Caini. Zhuoan breathed a sigh of relief and smiled at the little girl on the pagoda. What are you thanking me for? You fought for it yourself. After all, this rule was set by my previous master, Caini answered while swinging her feet. Zhuoan nodded and pondered for a moment. Caini, if I bring the 7 Treasures Pagoda out, can you sense the specific location of the other inheritor? Caini thought for a moment and said, if the inheritor can't hide her aura, I can lock onto her specific location. Disappointment appeared in Zhuoan's eyes. Moyan Wushang had come to the Void Yang Divine City to seek refuge, so she would definitely try her best to conceal her aura. It seemed that using the colored mud to find Moyan of Wushang was not possible. Zhuoan could only hope that Red Dragon would succeed and bring him accurate information about Moyan of War. Brother Zhuo, congratulations. You've completely gained control of this starlight world. Duan Jipeng heard the commotion and rushed over to congratulate Zhuoan. Shan Lingyun and Shapotian followed closely behind. Their faces were filled with joy. Zhuoan smiled and looked at Duan Jipeng and the others. He found that the 3 of them had made good progress in their cultivation. This was especially true for Duan Jipeng. His cultivation had improved extremely quickly. Now, his cultivation had already reached the late-stage cosmic avatar. Brother Duan, Master, Potian, I plan to leave the starlight world now. Do you want to stay here or follow me out? Zhuoan looked at the 3 of them and asked with a smile. Duan Jipeng pondered for a moment and said with a smile, I plan to continue cultivating here. The flow of time here is very useful to me. My talent is not as good as yours, Brother Zhuo. So, I need to work harder and spend more time. So, I choose to stay. Zhuoan nodded with appreciation in his eyes. Potian and I will not stay in this broken place. It's too boring. We choose to go out. Shan Lingyun said hurriedly. Shapotian nodded. He was too young and had a playful nature. It was naturally impossible for him to persist in boring cultivation. 100 years of cultivation had already made him miserable. He just wanted to quickly return to the great world to play with Xiao Hei and the others. All right. Zhuo Wen waved his sleeve, and Shan Lingyun and Shapotian were sent into his great world. Brother Duan, take care. The Starlight world is already under my control. If you want to leave, just shout. I will be able to hear your thoughts. After instructing Duan Jipeng, Zhuoan left the Starlight world with the help of the Seven Treasures Pagoda. When Zhuoan returned to the Divine Void Spring at the foot of the Divine Void Mountain, his communication jade talisman lit up. Zhuoan's pupils shrank. He hurriedly took out the communication jade talisman and looked down at the message. When he found out that the message came from Li Yinglong, Zhuoan could not hide the disappointment in his eyes. The Shuming family's team is ready. Family head Li is asking for my opinion. After reading the message, Zhuoan's eyes flashed. As he came as Zi Yang's distant nephew, Li Yinglong naturally asked for his opinion before sending out the troops. Zhuoan thought for a moment and replied to Li Yinglong, asking him to delay the deployment of the troops. He planned to break through the cosmic avatar before returning to the Purple Jade Realm. The best thing would be to find Moyan Wushang. Li Yinglong replied quickly and agreed to Zhuoan's suggestion. It's time to break through to the cosmic avatar realm. Zhuoan looked at the remaining 10 divine void springs not far away. His eyes were filled with a rich divine light. In the starlight world of the 7 emotions 6 desires sacred lord, he had cultivated for 100 years and had completely consolidated the peak of the cosmic tribulation realm. He was only half a step away from successfully breaking through to the cosmic avatar realm. The energy of the 10 divine void springs was enough to help him cross this half step and reach the cosmic avatar realm. He was looking forward to what kind of earth-shaking changes would occur after his cultivation broke through to the cosmic avatar realm. Zhuoan stepped towards the nearest divine void spring and jumped in. All the acupoints on his body opened and crazily absorbed the surging energy of the divine void spring. After breaking through to the peak of the cosmic tribulation realm, Zhuoan's absorption speed was extremely fast. In just half a month, he had completely absorbed all the energy of the 10 divine void springs. On this day, Zhuoan stepped out from the last dried-up divine void spring. His eyes shone like starlight as he looked up at the sky. On the horizon of the divine void mountain, the wind and clouds changed color. Dark clouds covered the sky and the space seemed to collapse. Terrifying cracks appeared. What a powerful aura! What is happening above the divine void mountain? This aura seems to be the aura of a tribulation. Could someone be undergoing tribulation near the divine void mountain? Around the divine void mountain, many cultivators looked up at the sky. As they saw the terrifying scene in the sky, they all revealed looks of shock. Rumble. An explosive sound suddenly came from the horizon. A large area of the sky was torn open and incomparably huge black holes appeared. Within each black hole was a terrifying tribulation energy that caused one's heart to tremble. At the foot of the divine void mountain, Zhuoan's gaze became especially solemn. The strength of the cosmic avatar's tribulation had somewhat surpassed his imagination. If he were to undergo tribulation at the divine void mountain, it was likely that many of the divine void springs in the divine void mountain would suffer a calamity. Thinking of this, Zhuoan sent a message to Li Yinglong, informing him that he was undergoing tribulation and that he should send some people to protect him. After doing this, Zhuoan leapt up and flew away from the divine void mountain. As for the terrifying black holes in the sky, they seemed to have a mind of their own as they followed after Zhuoan, rapidly flying away. The moment Zhuoan left the divine void mountain, the eyes of many cultivators around the divine void mountain flashed. They quietly followed. Chapter 44-41. Eldest Young Master. According to the report, Xuanyenshuo has been cultivating in the divine void mountain for more than 20 days and has successfully broken through. At this moment, she is heading north, probably planning to find a secluded place to transcend her tribulation. In the Shulong family, in Virtual Corona's bedroom, A servant knelt on the ground and reported respectfully. Virtual Corona stood in front of the bedroom, a cold light flashing in her eyes as she listened quietly. Ever since losing to Zhuowen in the grand competition, Virtual Corona had been paying attention to Zhuowen. She also knew that some time ago, Zhuowen followed the Shulong family to the Divine Void Mountain and entered the Divine Void Spring to cultivate. Transcending a tribulation? Did he break through to the cosmic avatar level? Virtual Corona's eyes were filled with shock after hearing the report. She knew that Zhuowen's cultivation was only at the late stage of the Great Tribulation of Universe. If he broke through to the peak of the Great Tribulation of Universe, there would naturally be no need for him to transcend the tribulation. However, how long had it been? No matter how miraculous the Divine Void Spring was, it was impossible to break through so quickly. Eldest young master, according to the report of our informant, Zhuanyenshuo is indeed transcending a cosmic avatar tribulation. Moreover, her tribulation is very unusual. Our informant doesn't dare to approach at all, the servant said in a low voice. Virtual Corona suddenly stood up, killing intent boiling in her eyes. If this child can't be used by the Shulong family, then he must be eliminated quickly. Summon Ling Shenwei. I will go ask the family head for instructions. Virtual Corona stood up and quickly walked out of the bedroom. The servant hurriedly followed, his eyes filled with shock. Ling Shenwei was the most powerful cultivator army of the Shulong family. There were a total of 36 guards, led by 2 early-stage cosmic avatar experts. The rest of the members were all cosmic avatar experts, the elites of the elites. In the past, Virtual Corona led Ling Shenwei to kill several early-stage cosmic avatar experts. They were unstoppable and domineering. This time, with Ling Shenwei taking action, Zhuanyenshuo was probably in danger. At the same time, the Void Lacquer family was also restless, and undercurrents were surging. 10 billion miles away from the Divine Void Mountain, there was a mountain range that was surrounded by clouds and mist. Boom! Boom! A figure flew over. Above the peaks, the sky was torn into countless black cracks by black holes. Zhuowen's eyes were like stars. He first raised his head to look at the black hole in the sky, then looked around. His eyes grew colder and colder. In the process of leaving the Divine Void Mountain, he had already discovered that many cultivators were secretly following him. At this moment, these cultivators were hiding outside the mountains and observing silently. Many of their spiritual wills were filled with malice. Come on. Zhuowen took a deep breath and stopped suppressing his aura. In an instant, his aura shot up at a terrifying speed, and the calamity in the sky also rapidly increased. From the countless black holes, endless lightning struck down. The lightning was platinum in color. It flickered with a noble divine splendor and emitted a terrifying aura. The range of the platinum lightning was too large. As soon as it fell, the mountains within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles were razed to the ground and turned into ruins. Zhuowen brought out the 9 layers of the Chenquan world and opened all 9 layers. 9 terrifying calamities blasted out to contend with it. The platinum lightning became denser and denser, and its range also became wider and wider. By the 9th wave, the platinum lightning had expanded to tens of millions of miles away. Many cultivators hiding in the dark didn't expect Zhuowen's calamity to reach such a large range. In a moment of carelessness, they were enveloped by the platinum lightning. Screams rose and fell. Many cultivators couldn't dodge in time and were destroyed in body and soul by the platinum lightning. Some of the cultivators who reacted quickly enough had sensed that something was wrong and retreated early. That was why they were spared. Is this really the calamity of the cosmic aspect? It's too terrifying. The power of this calamity is probably comparable to the reverse ancient starlight calamity. No, it's even stronger than the reverse ancient starlight calamity. The cultivators who were lucky enough to survive all hid far away as they stared at the endless bolts of platinum lightning in front of them in horror. There, Zhuowen's figure was completely enveloped by the platinum lightning and couldn't be seen. Whoosh! While Zhuowen was undergoing his tribulation, a divine warship flew over from the distance. It quickly arrived and stopped outside the tribulation. It's the divine warship of the illusionary family. Zhuan has a good relationship with the illusionary family. She must be protecting him. Look, even family head Li Yinglong is here. It looks like the illusionary family values Zhuan a lot. Discussions broke out as everyone's eyes fell on the bow of the divine warship. A middle-aged man with a stalwart figure stood there. He was the family head of the illusionary family, Li Yinglong. Li Yinglong had his hands behind his back. His eyes fell on the terrifying calamity in the ruins of the mountains in front of him, and a hint of shock appeared on his face. Zhuowen's calamity made him shudder with fear. Is this really the calamity of the cosmic aspect? Why do I feel like it's even stronger than Nigu Xingguang's? Beside Li Yinglong, Li Ying, Li Shuo, and the others were all dumbfounded and couldn't help but exclaim. Especially Li Ying. He wasn't very convinced of Zhuowen's strength, but after seeing Zhuowen's calamity, only fear was left in his heart. He could feel that if he was in this calamity, he wouldn't be able to last more than 15 minutes before his body and soul would be destroyed. Whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, 2 more divine warships came from 2 other directions in the distant sky. They flew across the sky and landed not far away from them. Li Yinglong looked over and his pupils shrank. The 2 divine warships belonged to the illusionary family and the illusionary family. Haomiao, the illusionary family head, stood at the bow of the ship and looked at Li Yinglong with interest. Xu Jieying of the illusionary family didn't come. Instead, she came from the virtual corona. Family head Li. What a coincidence. Haomiao put on a fake smile and cupped his hands at Li Yinglong. Why are you here? Li Yinglong said with a gloomy face. Of course, we're here to see how Zhuan calamity is going. TSK, this kid is indeed a genius. The calamity of his cosmic form is too surprising. Haomiao clicked his tongue in wonder, but his eyes grew colder. Virtual Corona stood on the deck and looked at the calamity before him. His calm eyes were filled with strong emotions, and traces of jealousy and fear spread in his heart. This kid's Chenkuan world has 9 levels. Shuju stood behind Virtual Corona. His eyes looked through the countless bolts of platinum lightning and saw the 9-level Chenkuan world behind Zhuowen. His eyes were filled with shock. Virtual Corona frowned and asked, Shuju, is there a problem? Shuju gradually calmed down and said in a low voice, Brother, do you remember that Zhuowen I mentioned to you before? Virtual Corona narrowed her eyes and said in a low voice, You mean that Zhuan is related to that Zhuowen? When Shuju had returned to his family, he had reported Zhuowen's matter to Xu Jieying and Virtual Corona. Virtual Corona knew that Zhuowen had a map fragment and had captured Ziyu. No, I suspect that Zhuan is that Zhuowen. Shuju's eyes shone brightly. Chapter 44-42. What do you mean? Mianyang frowned and asked. Brother, you have the universe world. However, Nianxue did not sacrifice the universe world. Everyone only has the universe world and the masses. Brother, this child. Mianyang's eyes flickered. After pondering for a moment, he said, he might not be used by the Long family and obediently handed it over. Daytime frowned slightly, but also. The younger generation of the Long family had absolute power. Within the endless platinum lightning, he relied on the 9-layered universe world to barely support himself in the lightning. He knew very well that this was only. As time passed, the calamity would have to enter a demonic state to maintain. Crack, crack, crack. Suddenly, the sound of shattering was clear. As if he sensed something, he suddenly looked up and saw arms reaching out from the black hole. These arms grabbed the edge of the black hole and tore it apart. The black hole shattered, and the surrounding space shattered like glass. Then, he was shocked to see the sky. There were a total of 9 directions. The 9 shadows were all in the form of a 3-eyed winged dragon, a sphinx, and a white-haired, red-faced dragon. The aura of these 9 shadows was as vast as the sea. Roar. After the 3-eyed winged dragon suddenly closed its eyes, the surroundings instantly turned dark. Waves of strong wind swept through the darkness. Sensing danger, he immediately activated the Taiyu sacred sword and used the demonic eye to summon. However, they exploded one after another. As fragile as a toy. Demonic flame. His eyes were extremely scarlet as he released scarlet flames, forming a boundless sea of fire that surged and swept through. However, the demonic flames could only resist for a moment before being blocked by a certain. He barely managed to resist. The surroundings were still dark, but the attacks were unbridled, roaring, and panting. However, his eyes were very calm from beginning to end. Boom. The attacks formed by the Soul Sword intent swept out from all directions. At the same time, the Grand Emperor's seal and the two primordial stones hung in the air. The aura became even more magnificent. Boom. Boom. The Grand Emperor's seal was enveloped in golden light, as if it was the strongest in the world. The darkness instantly dispersed, and his eyes stared fixedly at the Grand Emperor's seal and the floating primordial stone. The Grand Emperor's seal swung violently towards the 9. You guys fought just now. It was as big as an imperial edict, it was hard to resist. The 9 beasts became fearful of the Tai Huang seal. The beast was mainly afraid of the two primordial stones. Bang! Bang bang bang. The 9 beasts were in a passive position and were almost beaten down. They were sent flying 9 very soon to discover to his surprise that 9 streams of light had merged into look up at the sky. The vault of heaven healed and closed. The platinum lightning also completely dissipated. Has passed without a hitch since then, the Dharma laws of the universe. Hey! These are the 9 cosmic forms. The form stood still as if it had never been there. All 9 of them were extremely terrifying and could easily kill any cosmic Dharma adept. Only then did they realize that they were gathering in the distance. In addition to this, stepping lightly on the soles of his feet, but halfway through, Mianyang stood with her hands clasped behind her back. Seeing this, Li Yinglong wanted to drive it, but was stopped by Mi Haomiao. Family head Li, let's chat about the younger generation. Mi Haomiao. Mi Liang appreciates. Mi Haomiao, are you deliberately looking for trouble? Li Yinglong was furious. Mi Haomiao laughed coldly. Patriarch Li, if you mind, let's spar. Li Yinglong was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She said to Li Ying and the rest, go and help. Mi Haomiao suddenly exploded in front of Li Yinglong and the others. Li family head, I am very sorry. If anyone shows mercy, kill. If the genius of the Sai family dies, do not act rashly. You should know that even if you have the ability, you might not be able to stop it. Mi Haomiao's expression was cold, but his voice was filled with extreme coldness. Li Yinglong was choking, while Li Ying and the rest. Chapter 44-43. Zhuoan stood in the air and stared at Virtual Corona, who was looking down at him from above. His expression was calm. He naturally saw Shuju, who was behind Virtual Corona. The latter was looking at him with a venomous and cold gaze. He knew that his identity had probably been recognized by Shuju. But he was not afraid. After advancing to the cosmic avatar level, Zhuoan had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. Even if an expert at the peak of the inverse ancient starlight level came, they might not be able to kill Zhuoan, unless an expert like the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth came personally. Now, he had enough power to protect himself in the Void Yama realm. You are Zhuoan? Virtual Corona spoke slowly, her voice cold and emotionless. Zhuoan smiled and said, yes. Hand over the map fragments you have. Then, you will become a servant of the Shulong family and serve the Shulong family forever. This is your only chance to live. I hope you can grasp it well. Shu Mianyang's eyes were filled with disdain as he spoke slowly. Shu Ju narrowed his eyes, and a gloating smile appeared on his face. What right do you have to speak to me like that, a loser? Zhuoan spoke slowly, but his words made Virtual Corona's eyes darken. Virtual Corona, as the second genius on the Void Yama god list, had enjoyed a great reputation, but she had been defeated by an unknown person. This was already humiliating enough for him. Now, Zhuoan brought up this matter again, which was no different from rubbing salt into his wound. Are you refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit? Ling Shenwei, step forward. Virtual Corona's eyes burst with sharp killing intent, and her expression was no longer as calm as before. Virtual Corona gave the order, and figures with powerful auras rushed out from the deck of the divine warship. This cultivator army only had a total of 36 people, but their auras were not weaker than the cosmic avatar level. The most terrifying thing was that the two people in the lead were surrounded by resplendent starlight, and their auras were like rainbows. They were actually two supreme experts who had gone against the ancient starlight. It's Ling Shenwei. That's one of the most powerful cultivator armies of the Shulong clan. This time, the Shulong family has really gone all out, even mobilizing such a cultivator army. Zhuo Nianxue is going to suffer. Ling Shenwei's battle record is extremely brilliant. He has killed several early Starlight Realm experts. This kid has just broken through to the cosmic avatar. How can he be a match? Many of the surrounding cultivators cried out in surprise, and many of them were even puzzled. They felt that Virtual Corona was making a mountain out of a molehill. How could they send a powerful army like Ling Shenwei to deal with Zhuo Nianxue? Haha. Brother Shu, you're really well prepared. The moment Ling Shenwei surrounded Zhuoan, a loud laugh came from not far away. Another team quickly flew over. The person in the lead was Mi Liang of the Void aristocratic family. It's Hikari of the Void family. This is a powerful cultivator army that is not weaker than Ling Shenwei's. Even the Void family is so generous. Many sharp-eyed cultivators recognized the origin of the army behind Mi Liang at a glance and exclaimed one after another. There were also many cultivators who looked at Zhuoan with pity and sighed. Hikari and Ling Shenwei were the top elite armies of the Void Yang Divine City. They had brilliant battle records and were invincible. How could this kid survive when the two armies were mobilized? As soon as Mi Liang appeared, he blocked Zhuoan's back, completely cutting off the latter's escape route. At this moment, Zhuoan was blocked in front and chased from behind. He was really attacked from both sides. Haha. Zhuo Nianxue, you didn't expect this day to come, did you? This is what you get for offending us in the grand competition. Mi Liang stared coldly at Zhuoan and spoke while gnashing his teeth. In the grand competition, he was ruthlessly trampled by Zhuoan and lost all his face. Now, he couldn't wait to pull out Zhuoan's tendons and peel off his bones to vent the hatred in his heart. Do you really think that you can kill me with just this bunch of motley crew? Zhuoan hovered in the air with his hands behind his back and said calmly, "You're about to die, yet you still dare to be so arrogant. Hikari, attack and kill him on the spot." Mi Liang's face was ferocious. He had a fiery temper. As soon as he opened his mouth, he ordered the Hikari behind him to charge at Zhuoan. Kill. Hikari consisted of 64 elite cultivators. The leader was an early-stage Nigu Starlight expert. He was clad in red armor and his face was covered with a fiery red mask, only revealing a pair of sharp and crazy eyes. With a loud roar, he commanded the giant beast under his feet to charge towards Zhuoan at lightning speed. "You guys go too." Virtual Corona stood on the deck of the divine ship and said softly. Ling Shenwei's formation was neat and uniform. They rushed forward with two Nigu Starlight commanders, one on the left and one on the right, taking the lead. Boom, boom, boom. The commanders led by Hikari and Ling Shenwei summoned their Nigu Starlight. 3 huge Starlight worlds appeared in the void. In each Starlight world, a giant with a terrifying aura stood up slowly while holding the Starlight world with both hands. As for the rest of the Divine Flying Guards and Divine Ling Guards, they had also summoned their corresponding cosmic forms. For a moment, the 3 Nigu Starlight stood out in the void. Behind them were close to 100 cosmic forms, forming a huge army. It was a spectacular sight. The spectating cultivators were all dumbfounded by what they saw. Cosmic form experts. Even in Void Yang Divine City, they were considered to be among the top experts. What a magnificent sight it would be to form an army of such powerful beings. It's over. Hikari and Ling Shenwei have joined forces. Young Master Zhuo. Li Shuo clenched his fists when he saw the scene in the distance. His palms were bleeding and his teeth were biting his lips. He wanted to go over and help, But Haomiao's aura was too terrifying. It made him feel powerless. Zhuowen's expression was cold. He took a step forward and a hurricane-like aura swept out from his body. Then, one cosmic laksana after another appeared in the void behind him. A total of 3 cosmic forms were released. They were the giant ape, the giant lion, and the blackwater divine python. Although he had formed 9 cosmic dharma powers, Zhuowen's cultivation was only at the early stage of the cosmic dharma powers. Releasing 3 cosmic dharma powers was already his limit. Boom! As soon as the 3 cosmic forms appeared, they lunged madly at the 3 inverse ancient celestial bodies. What shocked everyone was that the 3 cosmic forms were able to block the Nigu starlight. F***CK. What kind of monster is this? He just reached the cosmic form level and he already condensed 3 cosmic forms. The power of his cosmic forms is too crazy. They can actually fight against the Nigu Starlight Realm cultivators. Nigu Starlight Realm? When the crowd saw that the 3 cosmic forms were locked in battle with the Nigu Starlight, they were all shocked. Virtual Corona and Mi Liang were also shocked. However, the killing intent in their hearts intensified. This kid must die. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble in the future. The 3 Nigu Starlight Realm cultivators were blocked. However, the cosmic forms of Hikari and Ling Shenwei chased after him. Numerous cosmic dharma forms fell like rain, surrounding Zhuowen so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. 97 cosmic Laksana Dharma Laksana attacked together. The power was unimaginable. Chapter 44-44. Zhuowen's eyes were terrifyingly calm from the beginning to the end. He pointed the sword finger of his right hand at his glabella. There, a purple-gold light shot out like lightning. The blazing purple-gold light gradually gathered and turned into streaks of terrifying soul sword will. 97 streaks of soul sword will rushed out with a boundless aura. It was as if they had turned into terrifying swimming fish that suddenly exploded. When the 97 cosmic Dharma Laksana collided with the 97 streaks of soul sword will, the entire sky exploded with dense and ear-piercing sounds. To everyone's surprise, the magnificent cosmic Dharma Laksana actually exploded the moment they came into contact with the insignificant soul sword will. One sword destroyed one Dharma Laksana. Zhuowen was still standing in the void. Around him were the scattered cosmic Dharma Laksana. When all the cosmic Dharma Laksana had collapsed, the 97 streaks of soul sword will circled around him like the most loyal guards in the world. This scene was too shocking. Zhuowen was like a sword master, dominating the 97 streaks of soul sword will. He was extremely powerful. Poof! Poof! When the 97 cosmic Dharma Laksana collapsed, Ling Shenwei, Hikari, and the other 97 strong cultivators all suffered from the backlash. They spat out blood and their faces were extremely pale. Zhuowen took a step forward. His words were like an incantation. 97 streaks of soul sword will suddenly flew out and slashed at the 97 strong cultivators. Screams rose one after another. In the blink of an eye, 70 mid-stage cosmic Dharma Laksana cultivators had their souls destroyed and fell from the sky. Again. Zhuowen took another step forward. His words were like a decree. 97 streaks of soul sword will slashed at the remaining 27 strong cultivators. 20 late-stage cosmic Dharma Laksana cultivators finally couldn't withstand the pressure of so many soul sword will and finally died. Again. Zhuowen took a step forward in the void. His words were like rules. In the end, the 7 cultivators at the pinnacle of the Dharma plane of the universe could no longer withstand so many spiritual sword wills. Their foreheads were pierced by the spiritual sword wills, and their bodies fell from the sky. At this moment, the entire place was silent. Everyone's eyes were wide open as they watched this shocking scene. Zhuowen had only uttered 3 sentences, a total of 6 words. With 3 steps, 97 Dharma plane cultivators had all perished. It was as if he had wiped out all his enemies with a smile. "Ah, little bastard, how dare you!" Seeing their subordinates being slaughtered by Zhuowen as easily as cutting vegetables, The eyes of the 3 Gu Xingguang commanders all turned red. Whoosh! The Hikari commander was clad in black armor. He was tall and sturdy, and he wielded a giant hammer in his hand. He rushed over and smashed it towards Zhuowen. Ni Guxing's divine power spat out, and the starlight around him shone brightly. A terrifying might crashed down like a giant wave, looking extremely frightening. Condense. Zhuowen's eyes turned serious as he formed a hand seal with his right hand. The 97 divine soul sword intense merged into one and formed a 100-foot-long giant sword. Bang! Zhuowen clenched his fist and suddenly slashed out. The giant sword tore through the space and hit the Hikari commander heavily. The giant hammer and the giant sword collided, and the energy exploded wildly. The aftermath spread like waves. The Hikari commander roared, but he was only able to block for a while before his entire body was sent flying by the giant sword. Go to hell! Ling Shenwei and the 2 commanders went behind Zhuowen. One of them held a divine spear and the other held 2 swords with both hands. They performed powerful divine powers and slashed at Zhuowen's back. Zhuowen didn't panic. His glabella suddenly lit up and another 100-foot-long divine soul sword intent formed. He clenched his left hand and swept it behind him. The divine abilities of the 2 commanders of the Ling Divine Guards were completely destroyed, and they flew out in a sorry state. This is impossible. Ling Shenwei and Hikari joined forces and were instantly killed by 97 cosmic Dharma plane powerhouses. 3 early-stage Nigu Star Light Realm commanders joined forces and were sent flying by this kid. What kind of freak is this kid? The surrounding air became more and more quiet. Pairs of eyes stared at Zhuowen, and their eyes were full of horror and disbelief. One person challenged 2 such powerful cultivator armies. Not only did he not die, but he also slaughtered the 2 armies. This kind of combat power, in the eyes of everyone, was already heaven-defying. I must kill you. The Hikari commander completely lost his mind. His whole body was shining like a flame. Hikari's commander is burning the Nigu Star's divine power. Not only Hikari's commander, but also Ling Shenwei's 2 commanders. Everyone was shocked to find that the 3 commanders had completely gone crazy. They were burning the Nigu Star's divine power and were going to risk their lives. The 3 commanders attacked again. This time, they burned their divine power and completely joined forces. Hikari and Ling Shenwei were carefully organized and trained by them. They were all very close brothers. Now, they saw that their subordinates were all dead and injured. They hated that they couldn't wait to kill Zhuowen immediately. You want to die? Then I'll fulfill your wish. Zhuowen's eyes became cold. He hadn't used his full strength to fight 2 cultivator armies alone. Now, these 3 commanders dared to provoke him. Then they shouldn't blame him for being rude. Mo ran. Zhuowen said softly. Rolling devil chi covered his whole body, and his aura instantly skyrocketed. The sword intents that were hundreds of meters tall hovered beside him. Their purple-gold color was tinged with pitch black, and they became even more demonic. Bang! Zhuowen clenched his hands, and the 2,000-foot-long giant swords seemed to be really held in his palms. With his hands, they slashed out flexibly. Bang! 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 At this moment, Zhuowen was like a god and a demon. His hands were quickly switching, and the 2 giant swords slashed out at high speed. Streaks of terrifying sword intent appeared in the surrounding void like fish scales. Although the 3 Nigu Star commanders burned their divine power, they were still repelled by Zhuowen's sword. Their injuries were getting more and more serious. Zhuowen suddenly clenched his right hand, and the 2 giant swords suddenly exploded. Countless sword intents quickly expanded, erupting with terrifying energy that shook heaven and earth. The 3 commanders of the ancient Starlight Legion screamed miserably as they struggled to resist the terrifying explosive energy. The Hikari commander's hands were blown away, and the other 2 had one of their legs blown off. Their bodies were covered with bloody wounds. A line of heaven and earth. At the moment when the divine soul sword intent exploded, Zhuowen took out the Taiyu sacred sword and used his self-created divine power, a line of heaven and earth. A streak of sword light, as if splitting heaven and earth, slashed from the depths of the sky and fell heavily on the three commanders. Boom! 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 The three of them were cut in half at the waist. Blood splashed and they fell heavily to the ground, struggling weakly. And their Nigu star constellations collapsed because they lost the support of their energy. Zhuowen's three cosmic Dharma forms strode over and stomped on the three commanders. The earth cracked, and countless abyssal cracks appeared. After the three cosmic Dharma forms raised their feet, the three commanders were stomped into meat paste, leaving only their weak divine souls floating on the ground. Zhuowen waved his robe and shot out three divine soul sword intents, completely dispersing their divine souls. After finishing this without hesitation, Zhuowen looked up at the virtual corona, Mi Liang, and the others in the divine ship not far away. You came specially to kill me and only sent these trash? Zhuowen said slowly, his voice as loud as a bell. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,